Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Winthrop Town Council meeting for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. We are in the Harvey Hearing Room. Call to order and roll call, please.
Counsel Tassinari.
Here.
Counsel Munson.
Here.
Counsel Costigan.
Here.
Counsel DeMarco. Counsel Aiello.
Here.
Counsel Swope.
Present.
Counsel DeRoss. Vice President Belcher.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the pledge by Councilor Swope.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes have been circulated for June 4th and 11th meetings. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Councilor Aiello, second by Vice President Belcher. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Aiello.
So on the meeting of June 4th, there was a vote to move the meeting from 7 to 6:30. When I watched the video of the vote, I believe that we made a technical error that needs to be cured. So there was not a first vote to accept Councilor Swope's amendment, and then a second vote.
We voted to, I believe, and we could look at that. We voted to vote on the motion as amended.
But we never voted to accept the amendment.
Well, we voted on the motion as amended, so we amended the motion as part of the motion. We could look into it, no problem.
Yeah, in all the years I've been here, which is 3 now, we've always voted on an amendment, and then once the amendment is passed, then you vote on the major motion as amended. So
We'll look into it.
if we could just put that note and then bring it back, maybe the council could tell us. I just want to make sure we're doing it appropriate to the rules.
Okay, so we're going to accept.
We're going to accept the minutes, and we're going to make a note to look into the voting on the time change of the meeting.
Okay, they'll all be accepted, because we need the June 11th accepted, right?
Correct.
Okay, so they'll all be accepted, and look into that. Okay, very good.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. General information recommendations, I'm gonna ask to take a couple of things out of order first, and then we'll do the fire presentation because of time commitments. So, we have Phil Ronan, who is the Veterans Agent for the town here, and he is going, under new business, we have a request for a sign plaque on Atlantic and Veterans Road for the late Lou Camacho. And Lou was quite a character, quite a fantastic guy, did a lot for this town, did a lot for the veterans, did a lot for the fireworks on the 4th of July, and also ran the old sound system down the center. And just a great guy. So I want to turn this over to Phil and see if he has a couple items he'd like to discuss about this.
Good evening, everyone. So, the Memorial Committee, which I chair, I proposed a vote. I made a proposal to the Memorial Committee to honor my friend Lou Camacho. A lot of people know him as fireworks, 30, 40 years, sound system. His close personal friends know that he's a war hero. Lou was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. Lou was awarded a Bronze Star with a V for Valor for combat, for actions against the Viet Cong. In addition, he also was awarded a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, with a star that signifies that he was wounded more than once. So, this guy's a war hero. He made exemplary, significant contributions to our country and to the town of Winthrop. My proposal is to put it on the corner of Atlantic and Herman. That's directly across the street from his family's home where he grew up in and entered the military from. And so the Memorial Committee, 5-0, including myself, voted in favor of honoring Lou Camacho. So that's what brings me here tonight in front of all of you folks. I'm asking you to vote in the affirmative for this great Winthrop guy, this war hero, and a person that contributed a lot to the town of Winthrop and made it a better place. Plus, he ran a hell of a fireworks display for 30 or 40 years. So that's what brings me here tonight in front of all of you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil, I appreciate it. So I'm going to ask, I ask the council to take this item out of order now. There's a motion by Vice President Belcher, second by
Second.
Councilor Aiello. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing that, yes.
I just want to thank Phil for doing all this work. It seems like we're learning about a lot more residents that have really incredible histories in the military, so I just want to thank you for.
Well, when
for
you
what
have a
you do.
treasure trove of records over in the wonderful office that the town manager gave me, fellow veteran, you know, you can go through stuff in a quiet moment and take a look at all the significant contributions that a lot of people, you know, that people don't know, that this, you know, person you walk by every day could be a war hero, could have done a whole lot for our country. So this is how I'm able to dig some of it up, and plus I get recommendations from family members, from citizens, what about so-and-so? And what we're trying to do as a group with the Memorial Committee to make sure we honor everybody that needs to be honored, not just veterans, but anybody that's made a significant, exemplary contribution, civic-wise also. All you have to do is bring it in front of my committee. We meet as needed, and, you know, and we'll examine it. You know, we look at credentials, we see if somebody qualifies, you know, and we just try to do the best we can to, you know, and especially the veterans, you know, there's a bias there, you know.
Well, thank you. Yes, Councilor Aiello.
I'd just like to put a personal note on it from a member of the council that remembers him extraordinarily well. Our kids were the same age and with your kids and for 20 years. And the amazing thing about his service to his country, we all know about his service to his town, is he was extraordinarily humble about it. Just extraordinarily humble about it. You would never know unless you saw somebody else started a conversation. One of the most wonderful people in this town that welcomed me when we moved into town.
Yeah, that's a tremendous point, if I may. He would never talk about, you know, you wouldn't know. Lou wouldn't talk about it, but you'd hear whispers, you know? And then when I opened up the record, I'm like, are you kidding me? You know? And, you know, Lou was Lou. He's a man's man, you know? And, you know, very lovable. But anyway, you guys are busy tonight, so I don't need to talk anymore.
One last thing, Jim, if you don't mind.
Councilor Munson.
Thank you, Council President. It's an honor to recognize honorable people. This is a refreshing thing we do here. It's most of the time it's not this honorable. So, but this is wonderful. I'm just curious though, as far as the sign, what is it going to look like, and in terms of maintenance, how long will it last?
Well, the signpost, I don't know, there's been some that have been up for
50.
older than I am, Counselor, you know? And what I do is I go around the town and put flags on for Memorial Day. And if I see a sign that's eroded, I replace it. I mean, I just recently replaced a World War II memorial that I don't know how many years that was. So a lot of these, they last many, many years. Actually, the director of the DPW may have an idea better than me how long the poles, and I think a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, you know, it looks like a street pole, street signs, it's the same concept. The black poles
Black,
though,
right.
and the black and gold signs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean,
40, 50.
30, 40 years, yeah, before they start to fade, you know, unless a car hits them or something.
Right. Beautiful.
All right, so we're just voting right now on the motion to take it out of order. So there's been a motion, it's been seconded and discussed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So now we would like to, coming from Memorials Committee, that the town council accepts the following memorials as voted by the Memorials Committee with a positive recommendation. Veterans Street plate for Ronald Lou Camacho at the corner of Herman and Atlantic. Yes, a motion has been made again by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tassinari. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all
Incredibly
very
well
much.
deserved.
Thank you,
Thank
Phil.
you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I'd like to invite you, I know I put the horse before the cart, but I couldn't imagine you'd say no. July 8th at 6 o'clock, it's a Monday night, so it doesn't interrupt this meeting. I coordinated with his surviving son, who lives in New Hampshire, and I will coordinate with Chief Goodwin about police, because I'm sure, and I'm gonna make sure it's in the paper, unlike the coconut tree, which was supposed to go in the paper. I'll write the article myself, and I'm sure there'll be a big crowd. But I also want to put a plug in for Director Calla. As soon as I told him about that, poll is already up there, so. Say la vie, thank you all very much, all right?
Thank you.
And we also have Attorney Cipolletta here, who has a previous engagement, so I would ask to take out of order the floodplain zone recommendation from Planning Board under old business. There's a motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Aiello. Any discussion on the motion to take it out of order? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. There's a motion that the town council delete in its entirety the current version of Chapter 7040 entitled Flood Hazard Control Regulations, and insert in its place a new Chapter 70.40 entitled Establishment and Special Regulations Pertaining to the Floodplain Overlay District as attached. I will ask Town Manager and Attorney Cipolletta if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Nope, we had the hearing, as many of you know, with the planning board, when they had their, right before their 3A meeting that they had the last week or so ago. And they voted this, their recommendation to the council. We had a few minor changes that they recommended, that Attorney Cipolletta made, so it's ready to go. We get the blessing from the state, so we just need to pass it tonight. We'll get a certificate of the vote off to the state, and we should be good to go.
Okay, do we?
If it's voted in the affirmative.
All right. So there's a motion, again, made by Vice President Belcher, seconded by Councilor Swope. Do we have any questions for Attorney Cipolletta or the Town Manager? Or any discussion on it? Councilor Tassinari.
Attorney Cipolletta, I know I asked you this last time. I'm just gonna ask it again, because I thought I wrote it down, I don't see it. This change to the flood control regulations, this is a state mandated change to our zone, to town zoning laws?
It is, and
Okay.
any town that does not adopt it will be eliminated from the federal flood insurance program.
You beat me to my next question. And then lastly, this is not the first time we've changed, we've passed as a council state mandated zoning. It was done,
That's
How many-
correct.
how many
It's
other
been done at least twice, and I think the last one was 2015, 2016, somewhere thereabouts.
thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Tassinari?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Costigan?
Yes.
Counselor DeMarco? Counselor Aiello?
Yes.
Counselor Swope?
Yes.
Counselor DeRoss? Vice President Belcher?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Now we will come back to the regular agenda, general information and recommendations. The town manager has an update on the fire station. We've, since the negative reaction to the vote in November ballot, we have continued to look at different proposals, a few different sites, including the site that we had discussed previously. And we've gone back to Kessler and Booth, the architects, and given us some more information, and we have a brief presentation to make now. I will hand it to Town Manager Marino.
Yeah, hold on one second. Can't see that on my screen.
Yes.
I just can't see it here. Switch the slides, that's all. Do you have it on yours? Let me share yours.
Not sharing on mine.
if you're able to start the slideshow, you should be able to switch them just with the
Yeah, it's-
space.
it's,
Right.
it's a-
It's not coming out on this one.
It's a duplicate. Hold on.
All right,
Let me take that off.
try that now with you.
Got it on yours? Can you share your screen?
Okay.
Just hit start slideshow.
Yep.
Up top slideshow. Go to slideshow tab. 6 on the left.
See, I'm all blocked up here, hold on.
Okay,
See,
sorry.
I'm blocked with the, okay.
And start slideshow.
Yep.
There you go. That's the arrows. All right, thank you. So we have been, based on the vote, obviously, there was a lot of talk about, the Winthrop Street site, and people preferring the middle school site. And then we also wanted to look at, there was a lot of talk about some of the low-lying areas, i.e. Expert Auto and the Little League field and things like that. Why can't we put it there? So we looked at the Little League field as well. So those are the 3 sites we picked. You'll see quickly that there's really only 2, because, and I'll get into the Little League field in a minute, but because of the potential flood zones, the Little League field is really not an option, but we still went through the exercise because they had already had a lot of the data
And
from
just
when they looked at it
as you're
before.
starting this, just for clarification,
Yeah.
it's the A field, so people
Yeah.
might think Little League fields.
No,
is
the A
the
field
B, the
over on
C, the
Veterans
D.
Road.
So this is
Yeah.
the A field that was made a presentation to the council and to the community back in 20 and 21.
Yeah, sorry about that. Next slide. So the Winthrop Street location, this was one of the renderings that we gave. Obviously, we're not doing the police right now, but this is what the fire station would look like if we were to go back to the Wadsworth and Kirby site. This is, the rendering that was done. Next slide. This would be the location on the lot, if we just did a fire station only. Again, we had shown this before, just the fire station, the 4 bays, and then the smaller apparatus bay on the side, and then, the berthing and the office space and what they needed there. Next slide, please. So now you get down to costs. So, the construction costs on this, we reran the numbers, allowing for the escalators and whatnot. The construction costs alone for this building are $23,823,000. Engineering and indirect cost is $7,250,000. Building equipment cost is $1,009,000. Property acquisition cost, which would be the eminent domain for the 2 lots, was the $6 million. That was what we talked about before. That's in there. And then business relocation expenses at $500,000 we punched in. I've got a note on that on the bottom. So your total construction costs there are $39,484,000. I did note that the estimate of $500,000 on this project, that could be low. I mean, we may have to pay more. Some of the tenants have already moved out, some are moving out, but really it boils down to, whether or not where the meat market's gonna go and what that's gonna cost to relocate them. So that number may get closer to 40 million like we originally projected when we put it out to vote, so. And obviously, this is in higher elevation, certainly the best option if you wanna keep it out of the flood zones and not have to worry about it when we get inclement weather and storms and whatnot, so. But this was the one that failed at the vote, so, that's that. Next slide.
This was the next one.
Yeah, oh, sorry, next slide, not there on my screen. Next slide is the middle school site. Sorry, back, if you can. Yeah. So this is, we looked at this, we had them look at the overall, but right now we're just looking at the fire station. So the fire station is that, orange area up by Wheelock. The benefit to this is, we put the fire station there. We can demo the auditorium in the old middle school, but we'd still be able to keep the gym building up for now until we decide what we wanna do. So we wouldn't have to relocate our park and rec program. That could stay in place along with the rink. Maybe we make some modifications to it, but it would solve the issue. And what there is right down along, probably half of that page is in a flood zone. So that's prone to flooding to up to 2.5 feet. The upper portion of that lot where the fire station sits on this plan is out of the flood zone. So this is another option that keeps it out of the flood zone, which is why we pushed it up towards Wheelock and out of that area. So that would be where the fire station would go. You can see potentially if you ever wanted to put a police station there and add that, make it a public safety building, that's where the future development could be. But right now, we're proposing just the fire station. Next slide, please. Now you get construction costs on this one. So this is, I don't want my thing so I can read the numbers. So 25,606 for the construction costs, 25,606,000. Engineering and indirect costs, 7,840,000. Building equipment costs, 1,900,000. Existing middle school demolition, if we don't get grant money in the meantime, is 1,500,000. And then the necessary sewer and stormwater upgrades that are gonna have to be done is 3.5 million. So your total construction cost on this option is, pretty close to what it would be at Wadsworth at 40,346,000. And then again, this plan allows us to keep the existing gym along with the rink and leaves options for reconstruction at a later date of either one of those facilities. You could do something down the road. The last one.
Do you want
sorry.
questions now, or just go through all three of them?
I can go through all three and then we can pop back
Okay.
and I can pull up the slides. So this shows the whole public safety building. This was what they had done before. We would only do the fire station portion, which is on the, so the upper left-hand side there, facing it. That's Cross Street. Cross Street, thank you. Yeah, facing Cross Street. So we would just do the fire station on there if we were to put it at this site. Obviously next to Miller Field and at the old Little League field. Can you go to the next slide? So the cost there, the Little League field, certainly a little lower than the others, but you got construction costs at 25,664,000, engineering and indirects at 7,860,000, building equipment costs at 1,950,000, and then we punched in $1 million to relocate the existing Little League field, because we'd have to put that somewhere else in town, because there's certainly demand for that. So this cost would be the 36,474,000. The only issue here is, since this was originally proposed, the floodwaters and the flood, where we flood, the elevations are higher, so we would have to build this fire station and to be in acceptance with the building code to 11 feet. That's currently 5 to 10 feet, in an area that's prone to 5 to 10 feet of flooding. So you'd basically be building it on an island, and that's anywhere in that area, whether it's Expert Auto or here, you'd be building it up on an island. So if we had an inclement storm or flooding, you would have to either move all the apparatus out, you'd have no use for the building, and then you couldn't get to it, so that's sort of counterproductive. When we need the fire department and the fire station the most, we wouldn't have access to it, so, due to the risk of the high flooding and the sea level rise, all these low-lying areas, I don't think are a suitable spot for it, so I wouldn't even, consider it. But we wanted to do the exercise, because, people had asked, and we wanted to, see what it, but even since they proposed it back in, I think, what did you say, 21 or?
20 and 21.
Yeah, 2021, it's even got worse, so that elevation, building code has changed, it regards to where the first floor height has to be, so, it's not, anything we would recommend. So you're really down, so I guess the reason for this presentation is, we talked about potentially doing survey questions. So we wanna put it out to the community to find out, what the community would back. We know they didn't wanna back Wadsworth the first time, but we also had unanswered questions with regard to what it would cost at the middle school and what it would look like at the middle school. We've answered some of those now, so we'd like to, based if the council approves, to put it out to a survey, obviously nothing official, but put out some survey questions, show the plans, show what we're proposing, show the estimated costs, and see what the community would get behind if we were to go for a debt exclusion vote, at an upcoming election. So, and now I can open it up to questions, so.
Yeah, and I'll say the Little League field at first. we
Seemed
thought
like a- yeah.
Seemed like a pretty good solution, because you had two access points, one on Veterans Road, one on Cross Street. And we had just got a presentation like a handful of years ago that we didn't think would change dramatically, but when they had said the elevation, and then they said that we couldn't even build to the full elevation that they needed, we could only build to 10.5.
Right.
10.5 feet because of the pitch for the apparatus going in and out. And then the potential effects it would have on homes on Franklin Street as well as the football field. The football field, we raised 5 feet to get it level with Cross Street, and that caused some issues with houses on Franklin Street. So I can't imagine what 10.5 feet would cause. But anyway, I'll open it up for questions.
There's also, just for clarification, on the A-field site, there's no mention of utility costs. There's a stormwater pipe that runs right
That
through
runs
that.
right in the front.
That would have to be relocated. Water and sewer, getting water and sewer to that facility potentially could pose a problem. It doesn't exist on Veterans Road. You might be able to bring it in from Cross Street. So you probably got $1.5 to $2 million of utility expenses on that site as well.
Councilor Aiello had a question.
I think he beat me to
Well,
it.
you, well, you had.
Yeah, a couple of things sort of interesting, and I thank Director Keller for the comment on the Little League field regarding stormwater stuff. Are we convinced we don't have a number for that at the Wadsworth site? Did we? As we were going through the numbers, a line item
A line item
for water and stormwater?
we'll have to deal with it on site, but there's no major utilities that we have to move to use that site.
But I would imagine that there's a possibility that, like the rest of the town, that the stormwater generally is inadequate as we deal with stronger rainfall.
Yeah, the plan is to store it on site, they had that in their site record number.
They do?
They did account for that, yeah, that was
Okay.
in their plan.
For all the different drainage that's gonna
Yeah.
come in and from.
It's a,
water and all
yeah,
that. Okay.
30,000 square foot building with the footprint's not
It
there.
doesn't seem like the construction number the construction number's about equal for places where is stormwater taken out separately. Here, you've got a similar number.
This stormwater number is to reroute that pipe from the Center Business District. Remember that huge infrastructure project that we
Yeah.
have to do that runs underneath the
Yeah.
Curran Middle School? We don't have that to deal with on the Wadsworth
I
site.
think we need a little more detail, personally, about what's driving the cost within the line items. I'd like to see that.
Yep.
Number two, I worry that using flooding as the sole criteria, which seems to be driving the discussion about these three to the exclusion of others, and even to think about what's happening here, is the reality is if a fire truck is gonna have difficulty getting through a flooded area, that means that entire community, part of that community is essentially condemned, right? If fire apparatus has difficulty, think about the water that's gonna go into people's homes, think about the flooding of people's cars, think about their inability to move. So, no matter where we put a fire station, we have a flooding problem writ large in this community. So I'd be worried about the feasibility of an individual site to accommodate a fire station and worry about the pitch and worry about the eventual height. But given the fact that it's close to or adjacent to a flooded area, we have to fix those no matter what, otherwise we got condemned neighborhoods. So just be careful about the rubric of, oh, it's too close to flooding because we have to fix that flooding, otherwise we lose the town.
Right.
Okay,
Well, we don't, yeah.
I just wanna make sure.
No, understandable, but we don't lose I mean, when we have flooding now, we don't lose the entire town, we lose certain sections.
When you're
and
talking about
then the
flooding
waters
that
recede.
you're worried about fire apparatus getting through,
Yeah,
that is significantly higher than the flooding that we've been seeing to date.
correct, but
Correct.
even a minor.
So that means that
Yeah.
those neighborhoods are gonna be condemned if that's the condition through which we're assuming the
Possibly,
fire
right.
truck.
And if
Not
that's the
possibly,
case,
I
then we
mean,
need,
if
then
you
we need fire apparatus to get there, right?
If you got 6 feet of water, it's
Yeah, and I'll let the chief speak
it's
to that.
going to
Didn't we
bad
already
places.
lose a piece of equipment for floodwaters?
We
a
did,
few
we
years
lost
ago?
an engine back.
Yeah, you can't.
Significant winter storm.
But we have to fix the roads for you, and we have to fix the roads and stormwater systems for everybody else. So, let's just be careful about
Yeah.
focusing on really one dimension of what should be a broad set of evaluation criteria.
Well, I mean, ultimately, the council will decide, but this is what we were,
I think the
So
point
if
of
there were a
this,
survey, I think we need help designing the survey so that people don't think, ooh, flooding, let me just think about flooding, because there's a whole bunch of other criteria that the community would want to think about.
I think what the town manager was also trying to say, as well as the fire chief when looking at this too, is this is caused by building the station. It's not caused by just necessarily flooding. It's caused by the effects of building. So if you have to, if it's a middle school site, you're basically building it on grade, right?
Yep.
If it's the Wadsworth building, you're basically building it on grade. If it's the A field, you're basically building up 12 feet, and the ramification, or 10 and a half feet. The ramifications of that would have significant effects on other people in the neighborhood, regardless of big storms or little storms, right? Because we've had people at council meetings, I think last year, that said they lived on Franklin Street for 40 years, have never seen water in their house, and now they're seeing it. I'm not saying it's because of the football field, but that's the one change that we did by raising that 5 feet. So I don't think it's necessarily, you're right, there's flooding all over the town, potentially. I mean, we're on an island for all intents and purposes. But it's what's caused, can you build a building on a level surface, or do you have to increase the surface by X amount of feet? Councilor Munson first, and then Vice President.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I've been so anxious to see this, and it's great to see the options clearly presented as, A, B, and C. I appreciate the comments by Councilor Aiello that, I think that you guys are presenting the information where these are the costs and these are the risks as buildings. I think Councilor Aiello is looking at the bigger picture and saying, well, we can't just exclude this Little League field because it's, because then that means everything around that is now excluded to be helped during a crisis. But I look at it as a practical, pragmatic situation where, the two options that you presented, the Wadsworth and the old middle school, are the most practical right away. And we are looking for right away, or as soon as possible, if I'm not mistaken. And so one of the questions I had was to Chief Wiley, how are things going now? And then secondarily, I had questions for you, Tony, if you could just explain the eminent domain prices. That doesn't seem to have changed from the last time we did this.
Yeah.
So the owner of the two buildings, or now the single owner of both, has not changed their position, or has that been reassessed?
They could certainly push back, but that would be what we'd offer. I mean, remember, those prices were even higher than what the appraisals were, because they were market value, so I wouldn't go much higher than that. I mean,
Okay.
that would be what we'd ask for, and there's always an opportunity for them to push back and challenge it, but, just like when we did the eminent domain takings for the road work on the Revere Street, people can still say, oh, we don't think it's worth it, but they'd have to come back and prove the case and, try to get, but that would be what we budget for, because it was over what the appraisals came in anyway.
So you're saying it's a pretty fair estimate that these are pretty apples to apples current stuff. I also second what Councilor Aiello said, would be nice to see some more of the detail that comes into some of the item. But it is nice, yeah, it is nice to be able to just see it. I did notice that the engineering costs and indirect costs were pretty much consistent across the board on all of them. The construction costs were pretty much consistent. The one area of major difference was the stormwater preparation for the old middle school. That underground stuff, I'm sure we have a big project still with the second phase of the CBD, getting that water out to Donovan's Beach, if I'm not mistaken. And it's,
And let me be clear, like, regardless of what we do there, whether you did, whatever you did down there, whether we did a sports complex or whatever, that number that's in that budget, it has to be spent by the town. Like, that's monies that has to be spent to fix that system. So that's not par because of the fire station, that's just the lot itself. Like, those repairs have to be made, those upgrades have to be made. So, I mean, let me be like, regardless of what we put there, that's a number that has to be fit into any budget.
that kind of is a great segue to my next question, which is, the town has to pony that money up to take care of those stormwater issues no matter what, but you also, in the same sentence, mentioned grants, and I know that you were looking for grants for the demolition.
Correct.
Is there money to be had for some of the prep work on the stormwater stuff?
There's some money out there for stormwater design, not to the level that we're talking there, but.
I was thinking, is that 3.5 is what it, yeah.
3.5, I mean, which we can apply for. We've already got other projects earmarked for this year, but in future grant cycles, we can certainly do that, yeah.
So the 1.5 was the demo, and that's the current rate?
Yeah, that's a little high side, not knowing what the asbestos number is gonna be finally, but we got bids of almost $1 million
I
to
think
take.
the actual demolition is in the $1 million range, but it's the asbestos abatement that
Oh, yeah,
is
yeah.
the-
Some of it was already taken out, but we just, that's a cushion.
Just a
That might
cushion,
come in a
right.
little lower, but, just to be conservative, so.
I was just curious about those prices, but I look forward to the more detailed review of the options, and I'm very thankful for this, and I really strongly suggest that once we've had all the time to kind of discuss it as a council, that we get it out to the people and get a real census of what they're looking at, so we can get a vote on the upcoming election and get this going right away. Thank you.
I have one more piece, but I'll wait for the see if there's any other questions.
And I didn't get to, just, if you don't mind, just saying a few words, Chief Wiley, on the current state of this. Are you anxiously awaiting for this vote and the beginning?
This is a good segue, I think, into
what I was
another
gonna be part two.
element of this, so.
The dire need for a new station.
Dire need.
It is not getting any better. It's worse than it was before. The manager's gonna speak to an issue that we're dealing with right now. We've been talking about this for 50 or 60 years. And they weren't, I'm not gonna say they were official exit polling that was done, but from talking to hundreds of people after the election, the consensus opinion is that we need a station, and the people are behind it.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, it's going to be their decision. What we're trying to do here with the manager, what we're trying to do is give people educated options. This is what it's going to cost, and it's ultimately up to them. But the need for a station is worse now than ever. As the manager is going to describe it
Yeah.
in a minute.
So we have a situation going on in the Pauline Street Station, the one closest to us, with the, so about 50 years ago or
It was
so.
in the early right around 1970.
Yeah, they poured a concrete floor over the wood floor and put some supports downstairs, to hold that up. As we know, we hold 90,000 pounds or so with two pumpers in there on those floors that were designed for horse and buggies for the most part. They were, wooden floors that are supported in the basement and concrete floor poured over it. Now, they did a great job. It's lasted 50 years. I don't think they ever thought that, that they wouldn't be in a new station by now. So that, is where we're at. But what's going on now is the wooden floor in between, I think, has corroded. And then obviously with the years of washing vehicles and wear and tear on the concrete floor, the rebar and whatnot is going on the current slab. So we're in a situation now where we've either gotta do some major structural repairs underneath, and or, now an alternative idea that was floated was we could potentially, the basement really isn't used that much for any sort of storage or anything. All that's down there is an old steam boiler. We could pull the steam boiler out and we could actually fill the void underneath with, whether it's epoxy foam or, flowable fill, which is concrete mixed with sand, and then just pour a new slab on top of it. Those are options we're looking at, where we've got a structural engineer, we're taking a peek to see what the best option is, but, that's gotta be dealt with, so regardless, even if it's, a different use down the road, we still have to, address this issue and, fix the floor, so, we can't wait much longer for a fire station, and we're gonna have to, depending upon the cost, we'll have to, bring that back to the council and decide what we wanna do, but that's, something that we're dealing with right now. And those, there's one big crack in the floor, and then, we short up some stuff downstairs, but we wanna, we can't wait much longer, we've gotta address it, so.
So I guess,
Just first, Council Swap, because she had already had her hand up before.
Two questions. We've decided on one fire station, not two? In other words, is it, we could, two small ones like we have now, that's not even in the
That
question.
wasn't,
That's
we
not a
didn't
question.
agree, yeah, we weren't planning on that before.
Okay, and secondly, the Pauline Street location is not appropriate. Is that also your opinion?
The existing station,
Well, it's not the exist, if you were to rebuild it, in other words, as a location.
the footprint of
Too
the
small.
building as it stands right now is not big enough.
Not big
Okay.
enough, not to meet
Then,
current.
but could you make it big, could you make that footprint bigger on Pauline Street?
I believe we did do
We looked at that.
we looked at it, which would
But there were
involve
seven eminent domains, so we
eminent
had to do,
domain
and there were
takings,
single-family,
including,
multifamily homes behind it, in order to grab it, to make it work, it was gonna be seven, which is what we talked about before, why we didn't
Didn't
pick
do
that
it.
site, yeah.
And you're pretty confident that this is it? These are the three possibilities?
If we're doing it right now, yeah, obviously, like Councilor Ellis said, we can search for a long, long time and try to find the perfect site, but we're 1.6 square miles, as we
No, I
all
got it.
know, and
I just wanna
we're
make sure
limited
that
as to what we have for land masses that where
before we
this would
go out to the town and find out that there's four more that people have been talking about, I just wanna make sure. that we-
We've got the whole, the grading system from the old plan and all that, yeah.
there's gonna be issues with every site, and I could,
Yeah.
I could say negatives about every one of these sites, and one about the Little League too, is we'd, obviously, in case there's any Little Leaguers out there, we would have to replicate the Little League field at some place in town. Councilor Aiello.
so, I'm assuming we have to reinforce that floor no matter what, right? Because even if we had a November vote, there's not a new fire station
No,
in
we
place
have to do it
for
no matter
3 to
what.
4 years, and so that's coming at us no matter what.
Right, and that's a historic building, so we'd have to fix it for anybody, but yeah. But, it's the use, right? So, if we're fixing it for, somebody wants to buy it and make a restaurant out of it in 5, you know what I mean? Like, that's a different fix than holding two pieces of apparatus. But we think if we abandon what's down there, so what that's gonna involve with the fill is we fill the void, pour a new concrete slab over it, but now we've gotta put a alternative heating system up in the attic versus the old steam boiler, because we've abandoned that system. So whether it's mini splits or heat pump or something like that, that'll be part of the cost as well.
So just as a follow-up, so my biggest concern, I agree with you, we need a new fire station, right? I'm deadly afraid of going out again and losing
Right.
again, right? And we lost by a lot, not by a little, the last time through. So we need to be cognizant of a couple of things, right? That in the air of people who are paying attention to town government and all that, we're gonna have this debt exclusion. We're going to have a Prop 2.5 override from the schools, somewhere between roughly, my guess, $2 million to $4 million per year, which is gonna be a sizable thing, depending upon where the committee decides to go.
Yeah.
We're gonna have debt exclusions, my guess is within the next couple of years, when the engineering is done for 3 areas, Morton Street, Girdlestone Street, and Pico, for which people are here tonight, that's another debt exclusion. So as we're filtering this stuff through, I think we need to make sure that the taxpayers in this town understand that we cherish every single dollar that we're talking about. So one of the screens needs to be, and I go to Suzanne's comment, right? If we can avoid buying private property for $6 million, or whatever the going rate ends up being, we need to do it. If we can figure out how to do smaller, we need to think about doing smaller. Like last time we had the health department in the facility, maybe we don't need to do it, but we really, really need to scrub the numbers, because if we don't scrub the numbers, I think when the taxpayers begin to see all the things coming at them, they're likely to throw us all out and say no to everything. So we just gotta be really, really careful and Loctite. So looking at additional options, asking people for additional options, describing how we're being careful with scope, be careful with the risks are involved. If we don't think like that and talk like that, and act like that, I feel a loss at the ballot box. I don't know what the right answer is, I just want to make sure contextually we're scrubbing for every possible innovation and cost reduction we can get as we try to put this thing before the voters.
To be clear, we've already, I probably should have mentioned that, the health department's already out in this new format for the fire station, there's no health department.
Yeah, and I have nothing against the health
No,
department, I'm
I'm
just trying to get a fire
But
station.
when we talked about the numbers being almost the same, that's probably part of it, is because we pulled the health
Did you
department
pull
out, so
some
the
stuff
square
out?
footage came
Yeah,
down, it's probably a
yeah.
smidge.
Okay.
Councilor Tassinari.
First, thank you, Manager Marino, thank you, Chief Wiley, for coming out and putting this up for us. I do agree with Councilor Aiello on a little bit more detail.
Yep,
Just
oh, we
to-
have that, I
to
just
get
didn't
that
put the
out.
slides, and I'll
Yep.
put that out for you.
Great,
We have the
thank
breakdown
you.
of the options, yeah.
And I wanted to float this probably, and it's gonna go in the opposite direction of Councilor Aiello, which would be, do we have any numbers on what it would cost for the full public safety building on those two sites, on the Wadsworth site and on the middle school site? And then,
About double, yeah.
about double?
Yeah.
Okay. Regardless, we would also want to be able to present how much the average cost per, tax lot in town would be for everybody who's gonna
Oh,
go.
yeah, no, we- yeah.
So,
Oh, when we do the survey, we
Get that.
absolutely put that
Yeah.
in there, yeah.
thank you.
Councilor Costigan.
I'm in agreement with everybody as far as the council. There's a lot of issues to discuss here as it relates to the firehouse. I'm 110% behind a new firehouse. We definitely need it. It's the location that's been the thorn in our side. The Wadsworth building, the discussions, I've gotten a couple of calls already. It's a historical building. I know there may be some different ways of defining that. People don't want to see that building disappear, I'll say that much. As far as the middle school, we need that location for revenue in the future, possibly also a community space for Winthrop folks. I don't think we should be too quick to vote on the middle school when we haven't taken the damn building down. The cost of taking that down, let alone the remediation, the environmental hazards with that is I think, probably, and maybe I'm wrong, is going to elevate that cost. So I'm a little concerned there. As far as the Little League field, Councilor Aiello, looking at the 2050 and the 2100 plans as far as flooding, that field's underwater. I'm sorry. I don't think that's a great place as well. However, I was glad to hear that Manager Marino said that nothing's off the table with regards to locations. This is not etched in stone. I have a significant interest in the basketball courts, and I know that has really hasn't brought itself to the surface a bit here. It is a zero cost to the town with regards to the land is sitting there, 2 basketball courts. Now, mind you, we just won the world championship. Maybe there'll be more kids out there tomorrow. But it's zero, cost us $0. The back of that facility there is the school. We can easily fit that building you're referring to in that location. A little elevation, it's a little down. I've never seen that basketball court flood. I've seen the, I'm just saying, I've seen the building next door to it with their low-lying
driveway there, and that roadway to a degree, but it fairly drains pretty well. But that costs us nothing to get into. We're not talking eminent domain, we're not buying people out, we're not moving businesses. And the backside of that, since it's elevated, and looking at some of the designs here with the firehouse, you can access that firehouse from the top side, second floor. You could have elevated walkways that could access that building from the school side. As far as the basketball courts, we got the Massport coming up, we got Emderay coming up. Have them build a couple of courts to the back of the Larson rink. Plenty of room there on the third base line, and you could measure it. You could measure it, and again, point of information, I'd be curious as to see how large those two parcels of land are. I think you're gonna find them fairly equal. So, those are my major concerns. And back to Councilor Aiello's point, as I mentioned when I first ran for this position here, we have to be very, very careful with the town of Winthrop, the people. Fiscally responsible. If we try to feed them too much pie, they're gonna throw it back in our faces. So I think we have to be very careful here and show due diligence on every cost-cutting measure possible as it relates to getting this firehouse in. And Chief Wiley, we need it. We need it dearly. And I'd hate to see us go into the polls and have the fire department lose once again. It'd be a travesty to this town. I mean, Chief Wiley, you do a hell of a job. And again, all the firefighters, all 31 of them that I've gotten to meet, deserve a firehouse that is centrally located to the town and something where, depending upon, what you're going to do in that, whether it's male, female, drills. I mean, I saw the designs, outstanding. So there's no question about the cost of that building. It's all the additional costs that I think we're getting away from here. So again, just some of my issues here.
We talked about the basketball courts, that came up. We were a little limited on the consultant as far as doing the deep dive, but I think, like you said, we could pluck a building in there. That isn't a flood zone. It is, it's like I talked about on that plan we showed in middle school, that back half, and including the basketball court, is in the 2 to 2.5 and bordering the 5-foot, flood area. But like Councilor Aiello said, I mean, we have to fix some of that flooding, and that's certainly the least likely area, raising up that level wouldn't be bad. You could get people in the building from the backside on that hill, you wouldn't get vehicles in. Obviously, you'd have a large retaining wall, you'd have to back it up into it. We, Chief Wiley and I, and, Council President here, we talked about that site. Certainly an option, I mean, pretty easy to, plunk it on there, I think it's relatively flat. We'd have to have a plan, like the Little League field, we'd have to have a plan for the basketball courts, but, that's certainly one other site that could potentially work, so.
Just to follow up to that, in looking at, and I've looked at both locations, I'm somebody who has a tendency of looking at the town, I've been here for God knows how many years, but that area of the basketball courts, easily, Phil, bring that right up in level. That roadway itself, if you look at the grade itself, is almost equal to that of the lowest portion of the middle school area you're referring to. And again, the middle school area, with regards to a firehouse, I think there would be probably some more meaningful purpose to that location, whether it's to develop revenue for the town or depending upon a community, building itself. At least we would have the option, other than, pulling the trigger and then regret it later.
And to be clear, I think we're all in agreement with you. The middle school site, we certainly would rather see for economic development, but we're only going off of what the residents told us during all of the public safety building meetings, all of the election results, the everybody we talked to, the middle school site had to be looked at, which is why we, did the deep dive here.
And to your point, I'm going off of the information that my constituents are letting me know. So again, that's where I stand.
Council Swope?
I just don't want to have you just mentioned another place, right? So because this is all expensive for us to continue to
Which is why we
work
didn't,
this out. Right. So we need to decide maybe on 3, but let's not go to 5 or 6 and have planning all over the place because it's so expensive to do. I mean, that's the first time I've heard of that possibility, and I'm sure you all have talked about it before. But we need to have some deep dive on talking about it before we ever ask them, I think.
Absolutely.
To plan
I agree.
anything else.
Vice
Which is why I
President,
want to get this conversation started now,
I know.
because we've got to, get going on it. So.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Just a couple things. So in 2020, when this was first presented, there was, I think, maybe 10 or 12 locations that were presented. I think it's important to bring that list back
Yep.
into the
That's
public.
available on the website.
Right, it's all there, but I think if we concentrate things
Yep.
where people are looking now, it would be helpful. I don't recall exactly what all the sites that were kind of knocked out for various reasons, but it's been said tonight, we're incredibly small. There is no perfect location, right? Everything has a trade-off. Part of my concern is that in the initial go at this we were thinking a little longer term as far as connecting to police or a public safety building, and I just don't want to see us get this done as fast and cheap. I mean, when you're talking 40 million, nothing's cheap, but fast and cheap and done quickly, and then in 10 years, when potentially the police station needs to be done, we might be back in the same position. I just want to make sure that we really think about what the longer-term goals for our public safety life in the town is.
Well, and that was one of the negatives of the basketball court, right? 'Cause we looked at the size, like, you wouldn't be able to do a full public safety building there, you know.
And that's
because
my
of,
concern at the
the
middle
size
school as
constraints,
well.
yeah. That would be fire station only, we did talk about that, which may be an option, because, you know, the existing police building, while it's not in great shape, and we're making some improvements to it now, like that building, you know, one of the bigger conditions there was one of the conditions, but they're out of space, right? They've outgrown
Right.
the building. So, you know, whether or not you can maneuver on that same lot, we'd have to take a look at that, but that's where we sort of stand with that. So that basketball court would just be fire station only.
Yeah, that's one concern. And then just a question about the floor issue at the Pauline Street Station now. Would repairing that, which obviously it has to be done, but does that trigger anything else, like as far as coming into compliance with other regulations that maybe we're grandfathered in right now to having things not accessible or what have you? No, it will not do that. Okay,
Maintenance and repair.
okay. Excellent, thank you.
It's not an improvement, right? I mean, it is,
Well-
it's maintenance and repair, yeah.
You
Fixing
consider
an
the
existing
floor
that's broken,
standing,
right?
yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, take the
Next
comments.
steps, you want me to come back with, you know?
Yes, I mean, I'd like you to
a
take
look
the
at that.
comments
I
from the
mean,
council, and
We know what the building's gonna cost, so we could plunk that building on the basketball site and show that. I mean, we
you
can
just
do
gotta
that
see the
ourselves.
space and the dig out that would be required.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
We
there's
can
still
measure that, yeah.
issues there too,
Yep.
and how it would affect Pillar House
Yep.
with flooding and such.
And I'll get
but-
this, breakdown with the options out to the council, so you can see what Councilor Allo asked for, a little deeper dive in the numbers. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and we'll keep this, and I think Councilor Munson has said this many times, but we'll keep this on the agenda for the next couple of meetings, and, well, we'll keep it on for the foreseeable future, but we'll hope to get an update in a relatively quick period
To be
of
clear, the
time.
grant we talked about, that's a budget request from Congresswoman Clark's office, the 1.5 that we asked for. It's a project she's bringing forward for consideration, but it's also, you know, there's a housing component to that, a small housing component, so it's tied to that as part of that bill, which is how we would get it. So I want to be clear about that, that's why
I think
we
it's,
did that.
Council President?
Yes.
If I may, I think it's also important to clarify, that stormwater work that we have to do anyway is getting lumped into the total construction cost of the old middle school. So it's not an apples to apples comparison as far as I'm concerned, because if you look at it, we're gonna have to do that anyway, so that 3.5 should be eliminated from the total project costs. Even though it's a part of the build on the old middle school site, it's actually about 3.5 less if you think about it. So it gives the old middle school, A, the potential for growth with the police station and the public safety as one facility. Two, it's not flood zone. And three, I think we can get consensus from the town. I would love to see as next steps what that survey looks like in the actual verbatim, how you would present it in the visuals, because then we can move further, faster, and get this town. And I agree with Coach Counselor Belcher, that we do have to think long-term, but that doesn't mean we have to move slow. And, I caution everyone to just keep on thinking, let's be more analytical, let's take more time. We've taken a lot of time. We have a lot of smart people involved in this. We need to make a decision, and we need to move forward at a steadfast pattern. Thank you.
And just on that, on the 3.5 million that we would have to do it anyway, depending on some type of development, whether it be housing, whether it be sports or whatever, that could be some sort of linkage, as I've talked about before, that you have the developer pay for that cost, so it's not necessarily a town cost. I think when you're also looking at the middle school site, which, I don't think is a bad option, but I would look at it personally as just a fire station also, because now you're also looking at, if you get further with a police station there, now you're looking at affecting parking and space and everything else, and you're looking at Parks and Rec, and you're looking at, we've talked about whatever it happens to be, but some sort of community building. We don't have a lot of gym space for kids in this town and for adults as well. So there's, I would almost look at all these sites as of this now, and listening to Council Aiello, which I think he's accurate on, is cost. Everybody's wondering about cost and stuff, and I think that to talk about 80 million now or 85 million is, I think the discussion is on a fire station right now, I believe. I think that's what we have to focus on, Council Aiello.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. President, and I would even caution to go out and embrace the notion that we need a public safety complex, and I've said this before. We are a small town. If we put all of our public safety people together in one joint facility in one location, that location gets compromised. We lose 100% of our first responders, and we live effectively in a peninsula. We have enough trouble getting people and equipment in and out of town. It could be disastrous. I think we really have to be careful about the notion that we lump them all together in one place, because we don't have any other we're not like Revere, which has multiple facilities as well as a joint facility. So there is a risk involved operationally if we move towards a joint facility. So when we think about the middle school, I support the sort of thinking of President Lettieri, which is, while you could fit the whole thing in, really we should be thinking about that as a fire station with a whole bunch of community and potentially housing accommodations there.
All right, good conversation, thank you very much. Try to get us, not saying tomorrow, but try to get us answers
Front and center
and
on other things.
a more in-depth financial look at the numbers and the lines. Thank you.
got it.
All right, public comment, first round. Come one, come all. Yes, Kurt.
Kurt Millar, Precinct 2. I just want to tie into a question for the fire station for the middle school. Does the demo cost include the disposal of everything that's inside the middle school? Or is that an additional cost on top of it? Don't have to answer it now.
Yeah,
Just inquiring because I know.
just taking comments now, but
it's been built up.
right, and that's, we did talk about the asbestos cost, that's why, because we've had demolition costs strictly at about $1 million, and then the asbestos is the big unknown as to how in-depth that would get. But we will take that under advisement. Thank you. Yes?
Cassie Whithouse, Precinct 6. There's definitely some state grants that are available specifically to towns. I know because of some of the projects that I've been working on, and there was a bridge for a site that we were looking at. The city can get the grant, but a developer who's building whatever, affordable housing or whatnot, they don't care, we can't access that fund, so there's definitely some money for that. Encourage you to look after all those grants for this, because it is a big important cost, and it's something that, a new fire station is something that they will support, definitely.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Bill Schmidt, Precinct 5. So, thank you, Town Manager Chief Wiley, for the presentation. It's interesting, Councilor Costigan talked about the basketball courts. For a long time, I've talked to Councilor Munson and other people about utilizing that for something, whether it be rink or housing or whatever, because I think it is a site that is underutilized. So I think, from my perspective, that should be put on the list of sites to consider. But I think, as I said a couple of weeks ago, this council has a lot of issues that we're trying to deal with, the middle school site, the override for the schools, fire station, 3A housing, the environment, but they all kind of affect each other. And I think that when you're talking about surveying the folks, you have to tell them not only what are they getting if they're getting a particular site for this, but what are they potentially giving up. So for instance, as Council President Lettieri talked about, I know you've made a presentation to Congresswoman Clark for the demolition costs, and the idea is to have a new rink and housing there. So if you put the fire station there, you're giving up maybe on that option. The same way in terms of when you're looking at the Wadsworth building, you really have to make a really strong argument to convince people who've already voted that down. I mean, when 2/3 of the people in the town voted that down, you got a hard time having people change their minds, because people generally get an idea in their head, this is, they like it or they don't. Pretty hard to change them, their opinion, and that's a really difficult battle. And also, I would say the cost and the timing, because I don't think, prospectively, you go out in November and you ask people to vote, not only do an override for the schools as well as the fire station at the same time, I think you're in danger of losing them both. So I think to some degree, you gotta think about, if you're gonna go for a particular site in November, which of these two questions are best to pursue at that point? I think you can maybe make an argument, I know that the fire department's waited for a long time, but my understanding is the debt exclusion for, I think, the Cummings School is coming off next year. So
Cummings
you
School
can
is
make an
off, yeah.
argument maybe for next year in terms of the fire station, maybe in the spring, you can say to folks, well, you're gonna be saving money, that the debt exclusion for the Cummings School is coming off, so we're gonna replace that with the override for the fire station. So I think it's very important how you present the argument to folks in terms of not only what are they getting with a particular site, but what they might be giving up, and also terms in sequencing and timing, so that we can win both of these arguments. The schools are very important, been underfunded for years. The fire station, these guys, they should have had a new fire station a quarter of a century ago. And I'm all in favor, I don't mind increasing my taxes to paying for these things, because they're worthy goals. But there's a lot of people who don't pay attention to what's happening, and I think the messaging has to be important. I'm willing to help any way that I can, because I think these are two important issues, and I don't want, as Councilor Aiello said, I don't want to see us lose these.
Education is definitely a key, no matter what we do on any override or any debt exclusion. Understanding the cost, understanding when they take effect, right? If you had a vote for a fire station in November, it wouldn't hit the tax rolls immediately, and a debt exclusion hits the tax rolls usually over a 3 to 4 year period because of the timing of when the money is borrowed. A school override would potentially hit quickly. It would hit next July, so it would be for fiscal '26. It wouldn't be the last 2 quarters of fiscal '25, but you're right, it's all about education and trying to get people to understand what they're getting for their money and potentially what they're not getting if they choose something also, what potentially could go in there. A public comment, Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a serious situation with the floor at the firehouse. So are we gonna get a written report from an engineer or a building inspector to tell us, everybody, exactly what's happening down there so we can get it fixed? And when do you think it's gonna collapse? You mentioned it. It's my concern.
Yep. Ours as well.
Thank you. As far as the meeting with intergovernmental strategy, I'm still waiting for the minutes from Mr. Aiello of the first meeting. You put your phone on the desk and you said you're gonna take those minutes for that meeting. Have they been produced and given to the town clerk?
No, they're still in draft form with the members, but I'll make sure I attend to that and get it forwarded. I wanted to make sure,
For the next
for the next,
We'll work on that for you, we'll get back to you at the
Intergovernmental,
next
yes,
meeting.
yeah, it's a couple months away.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
We're on
I'd
top.
like to know what
point.
Thank you.
the minutes say.
I'll have them for the next
We
meeting.
can discuss it
Nope.
at the next meeting,
Okay.
whenever that's gonna
Sorry,
be.
you will take care of that.
Next. When is the next meeting of your?
This is not a question and answer, though, Mr. Dowd. You could make a comment, and we will absolutely get back to you. There's going to be a subcommittee
I'd like
report,
to-
and he'll
I wanna
make,
know when the next meeting's gonna be for the.
I'm sure it will be brought up at
Thank
the
you.
subcommittee report.
A lot of people talking about getting insurance in this town with the new flood map. Is there any recourse to get something, knowledge, some knowledge of people? From what I understand, sometimes you can't get insurance now. No. So if we have something, written down or in public, to help people understand the procedures of getting insurance if they're having a hard time finding it? That's a question.
Yep.
Maybe somebody can answer it. And as far as the basketball courts, a rising tide lifts everything. So if the Little League field is in a flood zone, the basketball courts are also in a flood zone. No question about it. That's not a question, you don't have to answer it, but that's just what it is. It's in a flood zone. and the new flood maps are coming out sometime, and hopefully we'll get maps. I got some information about the maps, but it wasn't written. It doesn't show Winthrop's map, so are we gonna get the map for the flood zone for Winthrop, not for Chelsea, whatever, so, is that stuff,
My understanding is the flood map in Winthrop hasn't changed,
okay.
except for that portion by, at Logan
You have a
Airport.
flood map? I asked for it a couple of times.
We'll look into that and we'll get back to you.
I used to
Thank
have a big one.
Okay, excuse me,
It
guys.
faded in the sun, so I don't have it anymore. I'll say the next 3 minutes for the second item.
Thank you. Yes,
In relationship to flood insurance,
Mark
Anthony,
Senate,
I
Precinct 2.
believe that was for federal flood insurance rates
yes.
only. You can now purchase private flood insurance in Massachusetts. I did, I saved well over $2,000 on my rate, okay?
Seconded.
So, you know, you can purchase private flood insurance that meets the federal flood standard, and it's perfect. It has the same coverage as the federal flood, so find an insurance agent. There's one in Lynn that I know of, because that's my agent, and it'll save you a ton of money as opposed to the federal program. My rate, when I was gonna renew, was gonna be $4,800. I went to this agency, and it was half of that. So there are options out there for you.
Thank you. Anything on Zoom?
Diana Beans?
Hey there, Diana again, Precinct 2. I agree, so, something that Mr. Schmidt just said, with respect to, the priorities of Winthrop, I'm not sure exactly how he put it, but basically, I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that the vote in November wasn't about, being against a fire station. Everybody wants to give our firefighters the best facilities imaginable. We love our firefighters. We honor them more than probably anyone really realizes. But I think it's important to understand the values of our community. And the survey idea is fine, although I haven't seen great results or even recognition for survey results in the past. So I think open conversation is always useful, maybe in addition to some sort of electronic communications. And I don't think this particular forum lends itself to great open communications with the community about stuff like this. But I can tell you that the Winthrop building and historic properties in general are obviously valued by the community. So for anyone who's confused by that vote, please understand that that was not about being against the firefighters. We want something that is worthy of their service in Winthrop, and we also value historic properties. I think that with respect to the flood zone or flooding being a factor in the decision, I think Councilor Aiello and Councilor Lettieri are actually highlighting sort of similar concepts, but agree that it shouldn't take precedent in terms of where the thing goes. Welcome to Winthrop, like half flood zone. That's not, and furthermore, the firefighters don't just respond to fires. There's a lot of different emergencies that they respond to. And I remember last time we had this conversation, I actually heard a lot about how having the two locations was very useful for getting to emergencies in a timely manner, which really, really matters when there is a fire. It saves lives. So I think listen to the firefighters, certainly have conversations with the people. Wadsworth is going to be voted down. I won't give an opinion about the rest of the stuff, but I think everyone's points are well taken. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Anyone else in here? Yes.
Just quickly, I wanted to first of all acknowledge the council and the planning board and to say thank you for your diligence in working with the consultant from RKG on the 3A. Secondly, I've been talking with many residents over the past 3 days, 4 days. These residents are all tenants, they're not property owners. And we started having conversations about what they can bring to the table in terms of 3A. While they all don't pay property taxes directly, they pay them indirectly in their rent. So for example, if their landlord's property is reassessed, that assessment, if it goes up, can be passed on to the tenant, right? That's just the way it works. Secondly, the few residents I talked to said they don't feel like they have a place at the table in the community. Some are new residents, have been here a year or two. Some are been tenants renting here for 15 years and longer in the same property. But they don't get engaged, they don't get involved, they don't participate. I have a couple of neighbors who are all tenants. They've all been here more than 10 years. None of them got involved with coming when the fire station project, when that process was going through. None of them have shown up for 3A because they haven't made the connection of what their investment is into this community. Many of them have kids in the school system here. They volunteer in the community. They're active residents in this community, and as far as I'm concerned, we need to engage them in every process, whether it's the fire station, whether it's 3A, no matter what. We need to engage them and change that mindset. Because right now, for many of them, their mindset is they don't have a stake here because they rent, because they're tenants. And there's a perception, it's been on social media, and I've heard it said in public, that because they're not property owners, they're not invested. I disagree with that. I grew up in multifamily housing most of my life. I've been a property owner and I've been a tenant. I've been on both sides of the coin. I was as involved in the community of East Boston and rented there in the same place for 3 years as I am here. I was just as active. So I feel like we need, before the next planning meeting with RKG and the planning board, we need to get that message out to people in this community who are tenants, who do rent, whether they're renting a single family home from someone, whether they're in a multifamily, whether they live in Governor's Park, or any of the communities that we have here, any of the Winthrop public housing properties. They all count. Everybody has a place at the table, and we need to get that message out. So I'm doing that on my own. I'm talking to people and saying, you have a voice here, and you rent because you either can't afford to buy here, or you rent because from some other personal reason. But all of these people count. And I don't know, I just feel like we need to bring those people out if possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
That's a bad thing. Any other public comments?
Can I speak on behalf of Marcy Hamilton? She couldn't.
She's here.
Oh, she is here. Oh, I didn't see you. Jack's hiding you.
I sent in a letter, I don't know, and I do have a comment, Marcy Hamilton, precinct 2. I sent it to my precinct counselor, because that's what, I've learned how to do that now. I talked to John brings it to the council, and that's how I get my information up. Excuse me, I'll read the letter I sent him. I said, thank you so nice. I love the potluck dinner. It was wonderful. I think more of those community activities will bring the people out that the 4th, Mr. Camacho's 4th of July, the Horrible Parade is a great place for the community to come out, homeowners and not homeowners. My question, I was hoping you could raise a few questions, John, at the meeting when the council addresses the flooding and drainage issues. The town, again, it's been addressed, is applying for funding for this project. I have been told that we will have to go for a debt exclusion to cover the cost of the storm drain work. We are also going for the 2.5, and now the fire station. These are huge undertakings for our town, and I'm all for all of them. But I was wondering, how will this play out at the cost of the community in the next few years? Also, I like the idea of the councils knowing that what's on the agenda. I think it's important for the councils to alert their constituents to say, come to this meeting, it's important. I didn't even know what Click Fix.
See Click Fix.
Yeah, I'm not very good at this government process. It's getting better, it's getting easier, the website is getting great. But I thought, just like the police department does their community, the police department invites community members to learn how the police department works, and they get a certificate. It would be great in the future, not now, we have so many things on the table, if the town council, I know the town hall would do something like that too, to engage the community says, this is how it works. If you have an issue, this is how you use the Click Fix site. This is how you address, this is how you get a problem on the agenda. This is who you contact. And those homeowners or those renters are important, they do matter. And maybe if we had that type of a class, they would come. But my girlfriend told me that I would probably be the only one in the class. I don't know, but I think it would be helpful. I don't know, but these are important, vital problems that are coming quickly in the next 5 years to our community. And I thank you all for moving forward with the drainage storms. We have a Band-Aid on Girdlestone and Tileston, and I want to know the process moving forward. If we vote against 3A, which I'm against 3A, if we vote against 3A, what does that mean for the town, the grant money that you talk about, state funding? What does this mean to all the town coffers that we have? And that's my, my daughter would like to buy a home in this town. What will that mean to these homeowners? And I don't know, maybe those answers in a group class would help engage people who feel disconnected.
Thank you,
And a
Marcy.
community center would be great, and as well as refurbished fire stations for 5K. I'm all done.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Scared me.
Any other public comment this first round?
Yeah.
All right, moving on, committee reports, appointments, commissions, and committees. Councilor DeMarco is not here. We will put that off. Councilor Tasneri, intergovernmental strategies.
So we weren't able to meet tonight. We had to bump that for a finance committee meeting that needed a recommendation, or we thought needed a recommendation before a June deadline. So we do not have a current date for the next meeting. We're working on a day for next week, which I'll follow up with the members of intergovernmental strategies and finance committee to find a date that works best for everybody. But we do have an update. Councilor Aiello attended a meeting with the DCR. They did a presentation with their consultant about Short Beach and Winthrop Parkway. This is coming from work that's gonna be going on at Belle Isle Marsh, partly because of the Morton Street design that's underway and the piece of Revere that's under design. They are evaluating the pattern, so DCR's consultants are evaluating the wave patterns from the ocean side and the performance of the current barriers and infrastructure that are there. I believe we've heard about this a few times. That's that seawall, the gray infrastructure. And then as they collect that data, they're gonna basically have a next phase, which will be very interactive with the town of Winthrop and also our neighbors in Revere about how we're able to replace or improve that existing infrastructure. And hopefully, they could start work relatively sooner than later. Councilor Aiello stressed three very important points to the DCR engineer that was on site. One, how severely traffic in town is impacted when the parkway is closed, and how that creates a public health and safety issue. And about the need for help from the city of Boston or from the state police with the intersection of Bennington and Saratoga, so that could relieve some of the traffic flowing out and in to the town. And then also, he was able to connect the engineer with the town manager and myself with a follow-up email. So thank you, Councilor Aiello, for that report. Thank you for attending that meeting and making that connection with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Is there anything you want to add? Did I miss anything?
No, it's just, it was better news, thank you for sending me, but it was better news, I think, than we were expecting, which is that they have had this first phase of evaluating the flow of the ocean and the interaction with the wall to sort of understand those dynamics. And then they're proposing in the fall to start a community discussion. I know they intend to talk to Director Calla, to the town manager, and to the public safety officials about the data they have, et cetera, and then start developing alternatives. it sounds like if they had all the money in the world, a newly configured roadway and wall and stormwater systems underneath wouldn't be in place for at least another 5 to 6 years. That's just the design and permitting and construction period. So the importance of trying to get DCR to be an active member to effectuate a change when the parkway isn't available to us, to make sure that the throughput through East Boston is increased significantly by police manning that intersection is critical. So I don't think it was in DCR's brain about the ramifications of shutting down that roadway, and we tried to make the best possible case. So, and Tony, I connected you to the chief engineer for further follow-up.
Deputy, he's the deputy chief engineer, I believe.
Thank you. Any, on finance? Finance committee?
I can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Finance met before tonight's meeting briefly to discuss the potential roof and solar project. There was a company that does basically kind of like power purchase agreements. They came to us a few weeks ago with a project that would potentially segue into grants to redo the roofs on the elementary schools. The consensus is that their contract is not something we necessarily want to get into, but we do know that the roofs do need to be done, and the town manager is going to pursue grants to get those done separate from this power purchase agreement.
Thank you. All right, school department report. School committee met last evening. Good news on the agenda was we gave a citation to Nick Capuccio. We had mentioned him in previous council meeting, how incredibly well he did and won 3 state meets, 3 individual state meets in track and field, which has never been done in Winthrop's history before. On top of that, Nick's just an incredible person, which is probably more important in life. He's just a great kid and a great student athlete also. He also was able to go to nationals and represent Winthrop and had remarkable showing in his 3 events at nationals. So congratulations again to Nick and his family. He's just a great kid, and I see a very bright future for the young man. And the not-so-fun subject was the 2.5 override. So we did discuss 2.5 override. We were hoping that we would have a number in place at that point, but the superintendent is just going over every nook and cranny, going through all financial documents to see what the number would be. I feel pretty comfortable that they will propose a number sometime probably in their first July meeting. The school committee will vote on that recommendation and submit it to the council. So I'm hoping by our second meeting in July or the latest first meeting in August, the council will vote on whether to put that override on the ballot for the schools in November. And as we heard in public comment, any financial item that's going on ballot, it really needs education. It needs people to get involved. It needs people to understand what they're voting for, what type of community they're looking for, what services they want provided. So however it turns out, whatever's submitted to the council for 2.5 override, I encourage citizens to get involved. I encourage citizens to ask questions and participate. So we look forward to that, and we will have much more information on that as it becomes available. Town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Council President.
Before we, can I ask about the school committee report?
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to, in the past, I believe any kind of 2.5% proposition override required a list of specific expenses they needed to cover. And that's going to happen again, I would imagine, a line item explanation of what they need.
Well, the school department does not have a line item budget. They have a bottom line budget. But I'm sure that the superintendent is going to be extremely specific in what the money will cover. But it's not like, for example, in the past, and again, it's been 15 years since the town has asked for an override, and 15 years ago, the town did a menu item. On the town side, it's pretty specific in terms of departments, what department it would go to. On the school, it's a bottom line budget, so they will ask for a specific dollar figure. But they will, I'm sure, if they hope to get it passed. They're
Yeah.
going to explain, and I know that the superintendent is working on that diligently, and it will be a very detailed explanation. A ballot question itself is very generic, and the state is very particular and very, it's right to the point. We ask for X amount of dollars
Right.
in an override, basically, for school expenses. It's not going to be specific on the ballot.
Prior to that, we'll get that explanation.
Yes.
But
Oh,
I
I'm
would
sure.
actually love to allay some fears by having, instead of having this kind of like, oh, this dreaded override, I'd like to actually get it, and you're a numbers guy, so on the safe side, or even if we're not even on the safe side, for every $1 million or for every $500,000 asked of the town for an override, is there a dollar amount per year per average single-family home that you can, comfortably say?
Yes. You want that answer?
Yeah.
The average single-family home in Winthrop, which I believe the number right now in an average single-family home is roughly $659,000. And the average cost per million of an override, different than a debt exclusion.
Right.
On an override, on an average home valued at $659,000, I believe the cost would be $183 and change. So
That's-
roughly $185 per million.
Per million.
And that would be a yearly expense, so it would be split in, so if it was, it'd be roughly
2.5.
$47 a quarter for that. And an override, if there was a school override on the ballot in November, that would be for the fiscal '26 year. So the first, when you got your first, if you had the average single-family home and it was a, $1 million override, just for simple math, and your first quarter bill for fiscal '26, which would be for July 1st of 2025, that your bill would be up $45 roughly per quarter.
Okay.
For $1 million.
And so, in your, so far from what you're understanding and what we've heard from the school committee, right now there's a underfunded budget of, worst-case scenario is $3 million is the I've never even heard that number being proposed. So 2.5 seems like a pretty, so that we can do the math. You can do the math,
Yeah,
and
we-
it's not as scary.
All you
as
can do
this.
right now is look at the real numbers. So the fiscal '25 budget that was just submitted for a level service budget, which was just passed by this council, it was $1.48 million short for a level service budget for this coming year,
Right.
starting September. That's a fact. So that's what we know as of right now. And the superintendent is doing everything in her power to clear out all outside accounts, to prepay any expenses she can, to get through fiscal '25 without a significant impact on the schools. Fiscal '26 is not going to be the same.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Town manager.
I was asked to and did, we've got a, update on the Pico and Girdlestone work, those neighborhoods, Girdlestone neighborhood and then Pico Ave. The site plans that were done, this, existing conditions and surveys, they're here. So, certainly not finalized, but you can see all the benchmarks that were put in, all the work that was done, I can certainly pass that around. And then we've got it in PDF format, we can certainly send it around and put it up on the website. That was the, 50,000 plus for the work that we already accounted for. What we're waiting on, what we recently got, as of June 17th, is they were finalizing the numbers. So the good news is by doing this work and fine tuning the numbers, the number came in a little less than what we thought it was gonna be. So, not including the 50 we already spent, to finish the job would be, roughly 400,000, 396,500. We thought we'd be at 675, so that's certainly less than that, so that's good news. They broke it out, based on the request of the council, into 4 phases. The first phase would be, stormwater conceptual design for 79,500. The next phase after that is preliminary design of 158,500. And then phase 3 would be the wetlands resource permitting, for 70,000. And then the final design, would be 88,500. So those are to total the 396,500. So certainly if the council wants to consider possibly, moving forward with the phase 1 and not waiting for hear about the grant, that's obviously something you could consider. We'd have to find a funding source for it, but that would be the next phase, would be the stormwater conceptual design for approximately $80,000.
And again, just for clarification, this is for Girdlestone, Tileston, and Pico.
Right, Girlstone neighborhood, they call it, which
Yes.
is to Girlstone, Tilestone, and then, yeah, the Pico neighborhood. So, I mean, that's the two plans that we have here for both, all the
And more
workers.
separate.
What's that?
More than separate.
Morton's a different
Morton's a
project. yeah,
totally
that's-
different
that's
project.
separate this. So, you know, we've got two, well, like I said before, we've got two bites at the apple. We're trying to get the federal money, which, as we saw with E.B. Newton last year, that took all the way into the spring. So I'm not sure when we'll hear about that, but the other option is we're applying for two CZM grants, one's for the, renew and upgrade our vulnerability assessment, sorry, I was butchering that word. But we've got that coming, and we're working to put that application in. But the secondary to that is I'm gonna put in money for engineering, now that we have this final number. We can apply for CZM money for engineering fees as well, for some of the stormwater work, so we're gonna put in for that as well. So we got two potential sources to, fund this project, so.
And I hope to have a motion in the next meeting, really, on some sort to get to that next phase, because I think I have an idea to get to that.
Right, and that's the thing, so, I mean, we have the two pumps now, we certainly have set up a pretty good setup on, Girlstone, Tilestone, it's things that we have to, expand manpower to do it, but we can certainly help out with some of the flooding down there. We haven't done the deep dive to see what we can do on regular rainstorms at Pico yet, but that's next, we'll take a look over there. That, obviously tidal impacts that a lot, but now we've been told, it's the rainwater as well, so we wanna take a look at that, see what can be done, if anything, to, potentially pump that out, on a regular basis too, so. We hear at Money Site, schools, the town, everything else, so, I mean, if we wanna be patient, certainly wait for the grant, or the council could, opt to find a funding source, or direct me to find a funding source, and, look for the $80,000 to get to the next phase.
Council President?
Yes.
Could you get, can we get clarification as to how patient, like, can you give us a ballpark of when CZM and the federal money might be yay or nay?
Well, I think
CZM will find
federal
out
will be
more
a
quickly,
while.
that
Yeah.
application will go in there probably by the fall, I would think we'd know about that. That's usually when they announce those grants, you apply now, you'll find out by September, October, I would guess. The federal one I can't speak to, John, we're still in committee, so, like I referenced before with the money we asked for Congresswoman Clark, like, we got out of committee with that one, like, we're actually going to be part of the budget and potentially get funded. Whether or not that happens or not, that'll be decided at the federal budget level, but this other one is, within this program is still in committee. And I reached out to Wade Blackman, who works for Congresswoman Clark, and we haven't got an answer yet, so, but I believe it's still in committee.
So it seems like the least, the most, you're asking us to be reasonable enough to wait at least until the fall.
That would be, if you don't fund this now, yeah, I think the fall we'd have an answer on one of the two anyway, yeah.
Mr. President,
Councilor Testneri.
I think the fall's too long to wait. I think we should be working on this as soon as we can find a
Well, I think that's why I
funding
said.
source.
right
Yeah,
after
you
the
said that.
comments That I was hoping to
You
have
did.
some sort of
You did,
motion to
Mr.
start.
I'm
not for the
agreeing with you,
whole
Mr. President.
400, but to keep the process going, to not
Right.
get further behind.
With that said, were we to appropriate, if not the whole 400, but a portion to keep it moving forward, is there a way, should you receive the grant from CZM in the fall, since we're in the same fiscal year, to replace what the council appropriated? To put it back?
On the CZM grant, potentially if the invoice comes in after July 1, yeah, maybe. The federal grant, maybe not. I'd have to, see how that's, it all depends how it's written, right? And what you're asking for at the time. If you've already expended the money, they may not, consider it. But I just wanna, I don't wanna minimize what's going on at Pico and Girlstone, what I talked about earlier with the fire station and potential monies that have to be spent on the floor. I just wanna caution, we've got a lot of stuff coming up, and, don't wanna act with patience, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't at least alert you of that. Like, I'm gonna be coming probably with monies that need to be spent, whether we do a limited financing or something to, make repairs to the Pauline Street Fire Station, so I wanna be honest about that, so.
And that amount is gonna be significant.
Yeah,
just
I
to
don't
let
know,
people
yeah,
know.
so-
Councilor Ayala.
So just a couple of points. I agree that the fall is a little too long to wait, given the uncertainty about federal and state stuff. And if we put this on the next agenda, it'll already be in July, so it'll be in the next fiscal year, which would be great. And if it passes, and we did the 79, that would get us ideally through the end of the year, I would guess. And then if we have the CZM money or the federal money, we could then
Yeah, get it all.
fund the rest of
Yeah.
that. The important thing to me is to move this along as quickly as we can, because, as I say, this and probably Morton Street as well are gonna be stacked up in terms of some sort of debt exclusion, right? We'll chase grants. We may do well in getting grants. I would imagine most of the grants these days, there is a local match, so maybe just a local match that needs the debt exclusion, but it would be good to get those coming and then just start a rhythm of figuring out the next set of vulnerable neighborhoods, the next set of stormwater issues going. So I think it would be important to try to put this on the next ballot with some options about how to fund it, on the next agenda, and see if it gets the support of the council.
Continue.
After July 1st, sorry.
Yeah.
That's the council problem.
Continue, you still have more on your report?
No, yeah, obviously. We did have the meeting, everyone who attended, thank you, especially the Conservation Chair, Kim Dines. We had the Euro Beach meeting, well attended, probably, between 60 to 100 people there, so we did get a mailing list together. We got everybody's email address, and Larissa in my office set up a Euro Beach committee so we can blast out emails as we get more information. Still fine tuning that cleanup plan that I want to do before July 4th with DEP, but we're not there yet, but we are gonna, we did get some comments back from them. They still want, we push back a little bit, they're pushing back a little bit on the beach management plan, so we have to have another Zoom call with, Dwight Dunk, our environmentalist, the scientist, and DEP, so we're setting that up for hopefully next week, and then we'll get some answers on that. The quick reminder that we've got the Juneteenth event tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. I know it's early, but we're gonna raise the flag. I did use my town manager authorization for the flag today. I flew the Celtics flag today, took down the pride flag. On the June 18th, we flew the banner for, the flag for the 18th championship, so I thought that was appropriate.
That is very appropriate.
Anyway, so, and then we'll, once the Juneteenth flag comes down the next day, we'll look to put the Celtics flag back up to get our 14 days in.
Councilor Aiello.
You can just defer this to the next meeting if we're gonna be talking about stormwater management anyway. At PICO, there's that other dimension, which has two parts. I know we submitted the grant for the MVP study
Correct.
for the long-term
Yep.
resolution of the Fisherman's Bend Marsh, but you were also in discussions with the Northeast Mosquito Control?
We are
something
waiting to
like
hear
that?
back from them. They had to go out to Army Corps of Engineers because it's a tidal area.
Okay.
So we had to get permission from them. They are finalizing that plan and the cleanup, but they didn't wanna assume they could just do it without checking with them, so they're waiting to hear back. I bugged them last week, I'll bug them again this week, but yeah,
Okay.
that's where that sits. We're waiting on that. Yeah, so
Okay.
we haven't lost steam on that, and they were sort of gung ho. I know some people on there from my prior town days, so that are on that committee, so they were full steam ahead once they get permission.
That's great.
so,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yep. That is tomorrow morning for the Juneteenth flag going up, and then Ingleside Park opening on Thursday night. A little more involved this year. We're also gonna be honoring retiring police chief, Chief Delahanty. So there'll be some, proclamations and really nice things said about him, so that'll probably happen between, 5:30 and 6:15, so if people wanna come out, I certainly wanna remind the council, love to have everybody there, so that's happening on Thursday evening, this Thursday the 20th. And thank everybody for the Pride Potluck event over the weekend, that was great. Myself, Chief Delahanty, and everybody that was already there, we cooked a lot of burgers and hot dogs, and everybody had a great time at the bouncy house with the kids, and it was a really, really good event, so a little longer than last year, did it on a Saturday, so everyone seemed to have a really good time, so thanks for all the efforts on everybody involved to, put that together.
Thank you. CDICR update?
Yeah, that's basically, they're gonna be tomorrow at the Juneteenth, the other thing I kind of already talked about is what they're working on. Kelly Gall will be there, will be, to entice anybody, there will be coffee and muffins tomorrow. There tomorrow morning, and obviously a lot of work in the Pride Potluck, and then we're talking about, some sort of, whether it's a posting or something to honor the, upcoming June 26th date, with, Ramona Cooper, Dave Green. Obviously, they did a lot of work around the bench, but we might wanna, whether it's something in the newspaper or just try to, rally and see if we do something around that date, so, still talking about that.
Thank you. Update on policy committees, we do not have any right now. Old business, the solar power purchase agreement and lease agreement, we are going to put on hold for now.
Yeah, we can take that off for now. We're gonna say, well, with the piece of that, and, Vice President Belcher spoke of it, but the, what our thought process was, is we'd have a shovel-ready project, right? We'd go in, we'd have the PPA in place, and we'd be ready to get the grants. Unfortunately, when I looked at the lease agreement, they won't guarantee that, there was language in there that if we didn't get the grants, we didn't have to sign a PPA. So we'd have a PPA, and then they told us, oh, well, we'll let you out of it if you don't get the grants. Well, we're not gonna do that, so. We're not gonna sign that agreement, we'll wait, I'll apply still for the grants, and then once we get them, we can then engage with the PPA and move forward, but we're gonna try to get the roof money without that, because we've already got the permission from National Grid, to put the solar panels in, so we just have to, that's, I think, enough of a step to apply for the grants. And we probably won't get both, let me be clear, we'll apply for both schools, but we'll certainly probably get to a point where we'll have to pick one, and then we can go from there, but
Thank you.
all I can say is no.
Thank you. Flood zone, we already did. Vice President Belcher on the short-term rental ordinance, Airbnb.
Thank you. So this actually came to the council from the Charter Review Commission a few years ago. This was one of their recommendations. It wasn't exactly a charter update or an ordinance, so it kind of sat with committee. And I just want to acknowledge the work that the prior Rules and Ordinance Chair, Steve Ruggiero, did on this. Counselor Munson, Counselor DeMarco, Cipolletta. There's a lot of hands on this, and I think we've come to a really good ordinance that does two things, right? It protects the characters of the neighborhoods in town, and it also opens up an avenue for revenue generation for our residents. Those were two things that were really important while we went through this. There's currently in the ordinances, short-term rentals or Airbnb are kind of baked in with regular bed and breakfasts and hotels. It's a little kind of funny. This industry has boomed over the past 10 years or so, and our ordinances just weren't up to par with that. So one of the main differences now is when you apply for an Airbnb license, you go in front of the licensing board instead of the Board of Appeals. So I think that's kind of a logical switch. It makes a lot of sense, and I plan to reach out to the licensing board and work with them on helping make sure that the guidelines they create for determining whether someone gets a license or not is in line with the ordinance. So they would be handling that. They'd also be handling renewals. So every year it'll cost $200. A few safeguards we put on here is that I will read the actual thing. Short-term rentals are a residential dwelling or any bedroom within a dwelling of an owner-occupied home rented through the use of advanced reservations, So basically what that means is the house that you're applying for a registration, an Airbnb registration for, has to be your primary home of record. You have to own the home, so this makes sure that nobody's coming in from the city and buying up Winthrop properties and just listing them as Airbnbs. We want this opportunity to be held for our residents. It does mean that if you own a multifamily or multi-unit property, you can Airbnb one of the other units. That's a little ambiguous, and we can work with Cipolletta to potentially clean that up and make it a little more clear when we have the guidelines from the Board of License. Some other changes are that the total number of Airbnbs in town cannot exceed 1.5% of the housing stock per the assessor's office. This is to make sure we are not all of the sudden overrun with Airbnbs. I don't think this is a real risk. Right now, if you go online and look, there's probably about 120, maybe 130 of them. We have about 12 actually registered. So we don't want to punish people who maybe didn't know that you're supposed to register it, but we also don't want to have a huge boom so that we see them popping up everywhere. We discussed in committee potentially limiting by area so that you couldn't have so many in a certain density, but I think based on the geographic nature of the town, some areas lend themselves better to rental properties than others. Thinking specifically of Precinct 3 and Point Shirley, I think there's a lot of potential there, and you would kind of be cutting people off at the knees if you limited how many were allowed in an area. Another huge addition to this is the need for an operator agent. If the operator or homeowner is not available to respond to the property or to the police or the town manager, whoever reaches out to them within an hour, they need to have an operator agent who can do that. So this makes sure that if somebody's Airbnb tenant is blocking your driveway and you call the police, there is some way to get in touch with them, and you know what I mean? This should kind of make people in the neighborhoods of Airbnbs feel a little more comfortable that they will be able to get their needs met in a timely manner. Everything else is pretty standard. Prior to getting your license, you have to be approved by inspectional services, health, fire. Everything needs to be up to building code. There's a part of complaint process in here. It's a pretty robust ordinance, and again, a lot of hands were on this, and I really want to thank Jim Cipolletta especially for taking this up. So with that, any questions from the council?
Counselor,
I'm gonna ask your indulgence. First of all, a confession, I didn't pay attention to this until this morning, okay? So, and I went through it, it's terrific, it's day and night difference than what was there. But I do have, I'm quite anal about this issue of Airbnbs, as you know. It's probably gonna take me a good 45 minutes to an hour of discussion to go through them all. So one possibility is to, but I would only do it if you agree, for me to ask for council's privilege to delay it, and then I can walk you through these separately, and then you can decide whether you want to encourage any amendments, we'll tighten them up, and then we can consider those at the next meeting.
this will have a public hearing.
Oh, it's gonna have a
Yeah.
public
Yes,
hearing.
yes.
Okay, so I have a chance
It's
to
an
do all
ordinance
this
change,
stuff.
it's required to have a public
I'll
hearing.
do it at the public hearing.
Or we could even have a special
Well,
meeting with a
Right,
public
right,
hearing
to
for this,
do-
if it's gonna be
Yep.
extensive.
But it's great, I just want to make sure you understand, it's great, it's mostly on the enforcement end that I have issues, yeah, thank you.
Counselor Swope.
Thank you. Once we get to 1.5%, what happens?
There's a waiting list retained by the clerk's office. And then it's first come, first served, because that number will fluctuate as housing stock in town comes online, and as people maybe don't renew a permit, you know what I mean? It'll be in flux. So in theory, there'll be a waiting list.
Counselor Munson.
I want to thank Councilor Belcher for reviewing the short-term lodging ordinance. I did wanted to just make sure that everyone knew about the process and getting this implemented into into codified as part of Winthrop bylaws. Can you just explain the process, including the hearing that we're, and then the vote, and the timeline that would entail?
Sure. So this has been in committee for a very long time. It's been in committee.
Don't even say when.
We don't need to put a date on it. But, so what'll happen now is it'll be posted for a public hearing after 2-week notice. It has to go in the paper. So probably at our first meeting in July, which is what, July 9th? We didn't move them?
No.
All right, July 2nd. So then there'll be a public hearing, we can get feedback, and then it will show up as old business, potentially as amended. So this probably wouldn't take effect until the first meeting in August, when we vote on the minutes from the second meeting in July, I think.
Yeah, it will be in, mid-August probably where it would take effect.
Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that, because as Marcy Hamilton said, some of my constituents have been clamoring for this for years, and so they're thankful to actually get this to a point where there is a public hearing, and they could potentially suggest some amendments, but they're thankful that it's now going to be easier to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing. So thank you again for everybody, including Tony for pushing this forward, for Council President for allowing this on the agenda, and obviously to Jim, Steve, Rob, and myself, and Councilor Ariello. You were involved at one point too. I see you're still not done, are you?
This was a huge undertaking. I mean, from when the town adopted a Airbnb ordinance over a decade ago, it was in its infancy, more or less, and we were learning. And one thing we learned right away is that people were just doing it irregardless of what the rules were. And, there's income that could be produced from the town in different ways. There's just public safety in so many ways that needs to be addressed with it. So this was a major undertaking. I thank Vice President for her diligence on this and the committee. We will have a public hearing at the next meeting, I'm sure, and if it looks like we're gonna require, if we get a lot of comments, we could have a special meeting just for a public hearing for this, if it's gonna be extensive. And I encourage the citizens to bring questions, I encourage them to email the Council Vice President specifically in asking for any questions that they may have. But again, I thank you immensely for this undertaking, because it was a long time in the making, and still people have several questions on it. But again, if we're going to do it, we got to try to do it right. We got to try to do it to maintain safety and produce proper income, and we have to watch out for violators as well. So,
That's right.
thank you again.
Will you let people know how they can see the current ordinance as it's written?
Yeah,
It's on the website, yep.
we'll be having it on the website.
It's already on the website. if
No,
I'm-
I don't, it is
The
already on-
current is.
Oh, the current.
Yeah, the
No, but
current one is in
proposed, the
Muni.
The
draft.
proposed one, oh yeah, we put it on the website, oh yeah.
But the proposed one can be seen in advance.
We could put it on,
We
yeah.
can put it
If we could, that way people can ask, like, educated questions as opposed to just, because there's a whole section in there about being punished, or like having like a 3 strikes you're out kind of mentality, where people can't just take advantage of their short-term lodging privileges. So if they keep on being jerks, they're gonna lose their privilege.
And we're actually working on, we're gonna implement shortly, if I could, Mr. Council President,
Yes.
putting the agendas, but also putting the backup data that the council gets, putting that up on the website as well. So when people go through it, they can actually see the motions and see the backup data.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Which would be the short-term rental policy, you know, that kind of stuff, so.
Very slick.
We'll have like a meeting packet that will be available to the public,
That's nice.
so, working on that as well.
All right, thank you. New business, memorial sign we did. Tree committee, tree removal. I believe there was a request, and this is more conversational right now. There was a request for a tree removal at 170 Grover's Ave, I believe, for a driveway. There've been pictures circulated to the council. I believe the owner of the property is here if we have questions, but this is more a conversational thing. I'm not asking for a vote or anything right now, but if there are questions about this, please speak. Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. I just had a procedural question. I know the council put in place a tree ordinance recently. We have a tree warden, we have a tree committee. So if we could just publicly go over the process and how this came to be a topic of the council.
Town
I mean,
manager.
Yeah, the tree committee
Similar
and the tree warden had a hearing. One of the requirements in there is if one or more people complain in writing about, you know, a ruling of the tree committee or about a specific tree that is being proposed to take down, then it goes up, you know, goes to the council for a vote. That references that Mass General Law, I forget the language off the top of my head, I think it's 87 or something like that, but.
87, Section 4.
Yeah. So that, you know, talks about, you know, the mayor or select board in a certain town, which, you know, we ruled when we did 190 Somerset, that would get to the council. That's following the similar process here. You know, they didn't make a ruling at that level, there was a complaint, so they, you know, pushed it up here. Knowing that that language is in there, I would anticipate you're going to see that, you know, with a lot of trees, you know, any sort of request to have trees down. People will complain, and then, you know, you'll end up seeing them up here, so that's something for the council to consider, you know, when you look at those regs.
And just to, thank you, and just to follow up to that, so I looked at chapter 87 today, and it indicates that if there's a complaint filed with a decision that a tree warden or a tree committee makes, it goes to the executive branch of the government, which for our form of government would be the professional manager, so the town manager, and we're the legislative body. But our tree ordinance dictates that it comes to the council, so this is just a discrepancy that I did want to just bring up to the council and make them aware. It's fine either way, it would come to us right now because our tree ordinance is more in-depth than the Mass General Law, but that's just a difference. I know it's come up a few times as to how this got here, and that's just some background on that.
And as we start the conversation, I'll get right to you, Council Hale. Council Clerk, this has been on the agenda. Have we received correspondence on this, positive, negative?
Both, yep. We received positive correspondence on this from neighbors. 164 Grover's, Margaret Reister, Gary Reister, Jessica Hatanimi, and Alice Riley. And I've received 2 email objections from Julia Wallace and Diana Vienne.
Thank you. Councilor Ayala?
So we got a memo from the tree committee on this topic in March, I believe, right? And so that wasn't included in the agenda package, which would be helpful, but my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, that the tree committee voted against taking down the tree, correct? And then there was an objection to that?
I wasn't at the meeting, Ms. Paul,
Well, policy.
yeah.
I think the vote was 3-1.
Against taking the tree down?
Three
Yeah.
against and 1 for.
Yeah, 3 against and 1
And
for.
someone filed a complaint to get it.
And someone filed a complaint after the,
Baines filed a complaint.
Diana Viens
Baines,
filed a complaint
about removing the tree.
because she wants the tree removed?
No.
There's not one removed.
I'm
That was
confused now.
written.
So the committee voted against taking down the tree,
Correct.
and she, I don't want to speak for her, but this is surprising. She voted against,
So originally came to us,
strange,
the request,
yeah,
and then we had a meeting, had a hearing,
yeah.
and then before the hearing, we got a letter from Diana Baines. I think there was one other, not to remove the tree. That's why we're here today.
So if somebody files a complaint saying, I don't want the tree committee to do this or that, and the tree committee actually agrees, it still has to come to us to say, what, never mind? I mean, it's just weird. This is
Well,
very
the
weird.
tree committee, do they have the authority? I'm not sure. So I am for removing the tree, and I'm the tree warden. So I suppose I would the one bringing it before the.
That's
You're
different.
bringing forward an objection for, an objection, but that effectively says in substance that the objector agrees with the actions of the tree committee. Correct?
I think the question is the,
I would like the tree removed,
Right.
so the gentleman can put a driveway in.
right, so the warden.
So Diana Viens wrote that she wants the tree removed?
No, no.
There's not one removed.
The
That's
tree
why-
warden has agreed with the request to remove the tree. Since there was an objection to the tree warden's recommendation, now the tree committee is making a recommendation not to tear down the tree. The tree warden is saying, he gives approval for the driveway, the neighbors are in agreement with it, my understanding is the owner would replace the tree. And since there was an objection to the tree warden's recommendation, it has come to the council.
Mike, you want me to read that, the section, Joe?
I think Joe's thinking,
Yeah.
which it sounds like, people said no, there was somebody who said, say no, so why does it have to come to us?
Yeah.
But this is,
The tree warden makes the call.
tree warden makes the call.
So it says right here, consistent with general law, chapter 87, section 4, the tree warden shall not cut down or remove or grant a permit for the cutting down or removal of a public tree if at or before the public hearing pursuant to general law 87, section 3, and this ordinance objection in writing is made by one or more persons, unless such cutting or removal is permitted. To remove the tree is approved by the town council. So there's some little ambiguity in that language, and then based on what we did for 190 Somerset, that's how it ended up here.
Council Swap.
I was at that meeting, and I know that the tree warden doesn't want, is in favor of it, but the tree committee voted 3 to 1.
The tree
The
warden
tree warden has the authority to
Not the
remove the tree, not the committee.
Regardless of what they say, right?
Well,
He-
they're
Well, it's a
advisory
recommendation.
committees.
It's an
I think
advisory
it's recommendations. but
Okay, I just want
It's
you.
not a policy-making committee, it's an advisory committee.
yeah.
Okay, okay. There was one other person on the committee that agreed with the tree warden. It was 3 to 1, is right. Is
So
that the way?
that's how we got here, so,
So,
Yes.
Question.
so then we're discussing the merits of the request to, of the warden's suggestion, and then we're going to decide today?
No, we do not have to decide today, but we want to make this discussion today. If we would like to decide today, that's great. If not, then we could put it on the agenda for the next meeting and decide, but I wanted to give ample time for the council to ask questions potentially of the homeowner. If there's concerns, ask question of the tree warden, why he felt it was a positive recommendation from the tree warden to remove the tree.
May I ask a question of the
Yes.
warden?
Paul? Paul? Question?
Paul, would you be so kind as to, I mean, I see the text here that was given, and can you explain why you were in favor and what, if there's any merits to why there would be no, that would be a bad idea to remove the tree? Can you just briefly just summarize?
I don't see any merits not to take the tree down. The tree is in decline, it's in very poor health. The roots And this gentleman is willing to replace that tree with 4 or 5 trees.
No.
I can't see how this is a win for the town, a win for the homeowner. We'll have 5 trees in 5 or 10 years that will be 10 times the size of that tree.
Can
So
you,
how can we lose on this?
and so what were the complaints and reasons why we should keep it?
Just, I think for the sake of argument.
So
They need to keep us in check, I don't know.
are the mitigation offering by the owner, have they been actually written down that they are going to replace the trees with others? Or is it just kind of conversational?
I'll ask the owner has been gracious enough to come tonight. I'll ask the owner.
Yeah, Nathan O'Leary and my wife Sean O'Leary. We can say right now, we would plant 4 to 5 trees or whatever was needed. I mean, our argument is that the tree is, it has been a difficult tree. It's been dropping limbs on our cars. And actually, the tree that was planted at the same time in front fell into the street, taking down wires 3 years ago. So it's just a matter of time that we're feeling this is gonna fall. This would be for a driveway. We can't put one on the other side of the house. We don't have the room with the abutting neighbor. All our neighbors on both sides have written letters in support. We've had the Board of Appeals already sign off on where the driveway would go because it's abutting closely to the neighbor. This is the last step in mitigating this. And also on Grover's where we are, it is a hardship to get up our stairs. We have 2 sets of stairs to get to our front porch. And the last homeowners, actually, that was what moved them out at 85. They had said the stairs were just too much. We're gonna be in there for the rest of our lives. I mean, we've done an interior renovation. We moved there 6 years ago. We're doing the outside. We are there to stay. We don't want to take down a tree willy-nilly. That's not the situation here. I agree it's an unhealthy tree. The benefit of having the driveway for us, I think, would outweigh taking down this one tree, given that we're gonna replace it with 4 to 5 other trees. Just to give you our sentiment, when we moved in there, there was a tree in the backyard that had been taken down. I believe it was struck by lightning or just died. And we put a lilac tree in there the first year. So we certainly want to mitigate any harm to the neighborhood. I would also add, if it is passed and we could do 4 or 5 trees, we'd like to replant one of those in front of the house. And also I talked to some other neighbors from our house down to the intersection. There are no trees on either side. And 185 Grover's, the owners there expressed an interest in having, if we were to get approved and do the 4 to 5 trees, that one would go in front of our house and one could go in front of theirs. And then the town could put the rest wherever they'd like. We've lost quite a few trees because of the age, and we're hoping we found a good balance here.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it. This is not for comment from the,
Yeah, well,
this is not from comment from the public. I'm asking, he's the
So I guess
homeowner.
somebody else comments.
He's the homeowner. I'm asking, we're trying to
That's
get
not right.
clarification.
You know it's not right, Jim. It's not supposed
We're
to
getting
go-
clarification, Mr. Dowd, on a question that was asked by a counselor on this specific item.
I'm on the tree committee. May I say something?
Yes.
Another comment.
Okay. I was at the meeting where the tree committee voted to keep the tree, but the homeowner was not there to offer the mitigation. If that mitigation were offered at the meeting, the tree committee vote, I'm sure would have been different. I know my vote would have been different. We would wind up with the mitigation with extra trees, with more trees in town, which is the mission of the tree committee. So I would vote for removing the tree, because we'll get more trees ultimately out of it.
Thank you. Any other quick, Counselor Aiello?
Is it, just hearing that, is it possible to send this back to the tree committee, have you attend, have you make the offer you made, documenting how, and see if we can get a different recommendation out of the tree committee?
Are you asking me?
The homeowners.
It would be, but I think the process, we're just concerned about the time that it's just taken so long, but I mean, we could do that.
Joe, the tree committee's not gonna meet till September now. Taking July and August off.
And again, the tree committee is an advisory committee, it could end up right back here anyway.
It's just strange that we had something before the, I don't want to litigate this here, but the whole thing sounds odd to me, as I have already said, but not having attended the tree committee meeting for a tree that you wanted taken down seems a bit odd, and it was just described, so. I would send, I mean, my instinct is to send it back to the tree committee and make the proffer and document it.
I think the procedure, the way it has already come, it is on our plate right now.
It's gonna come right back to the
It's gonna come back
council,
to the
because we
council
have
regardless.
there are people in town that are against taking trees down, so it only takes one complaint.
So if
I think
the
way
tree committee
policy's
voted
currently
3-0.
written, most of these are gonna get to the town council, just because we've sort of taken the legs off from under the tree warden. He makes a ruling, but only takes one person to complain, and then it ends up here at the council, so we may wanna take a look at the tree policy if you don't wanna have them all here, but I think that's how it's gonna go moving forward, unfortunately.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Is there a way to formalize the mitigation offer? Not that I don't trust you, but would that be in like an order of conditions that would come with the permit, or?
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure that before anybody says anything, you know what I mean? I just want to make sure everything is documented and easy to follow.
Council Munson.
What if you were to write a letter to the council president stating that he will make a contribution to the town tree committee, tree fund, for X amount of dollars?
I mean,
Well, I think either way, I think the homeowner would like to have a condition where one of those trees is in front of their house, and I think they would like to make a recommendation that one of the trees is in front of 185. And I think they would be more than willing to say that at the town discretion, they could plant the other 3 trees at the town's discretion. I think the homeowners would be willing to do that. Councilor Munson?
Yeah, if we're gonna end up seeing a bunch of these cases in front of us, it does seem to me that there is a kind of a disconnect in the process. If this is to hear both sides of an argument, it doesn't feel like we're actually hearing both sides of the argument. To me, if it's just a letter because of the, like as the warden said, it's just someone's making the case just because, well, that's different. But if there's actually valid reasons against taking down the tree, I want to hear them. So I don't know where we fix the process, but this is not, I mean, as of right now, it seems like a no-brainer. Let's let the homeowner do what he needs to do. But from what I can tell, we're not hearing the whole story.
Vice President Belcher?
Thank you. Just to clarify, I think the reason people would speak out against removing a tree is because of the importance of the tree canopy in town, especially as it relates to airport mitigation and all this stuff. Just to say that it's not just for the heck of it to say don't remove a tree, but is there any arborist report that the tree is like not doing so great? Like, do we have documentation of that? I'm just trying to think of everything that would be helpful to have in one packet. It says this tree was not in good health. We have the mitigation, you know what I mean, just everything all together.
I inspected the tree. If you wanted to take a look, anyone wanted to take a look, you could look at the base of the tree. It's really almost 18 inches around the whole base of the tree. It's choking itself to death. There's no growth in the top of the tree. It looked like it was just topped off because there's no new growth. I'm not sure an arborist could do this, but if you want a risk assessment, that's several $100.
Right. I mean, even if you could just write up your assessment as the tree warden of the tree, just so we have everything. I'm just thinking of transparency and documentation and all that stuff. That would be
Councilor
helpful.
Swope.
There's been, I think that if we allow this, and I don't know exactly how I'm gonna vote on it, because I have heard your point of view, I think it's a good one. But to allow people to take down healthy trees in this, to put up a driveway when you bought that without a driveway is a concern for me, because, and I'm not sure, I would want an arborist's opinion if indeed we're going to say that that tree is unhealthy and it should go. So
I would like to offer, did you see the pictures were they shared?
I
Yes,
did-
they were shared.
I did see those, and I did, and I heard before, that there was no new growth in that tree, but I see leaves all over that tree. So
Old growth, old growth, not new growth, nothing on the top.
On
Nothing
the
coming
very
from
top,
new.
well, I think you've trimmed it a bit.
Yeah, well,
At least, I know that Tony told me that he had taken lots of branches down, so I don't know if that if it has to take some time
That's
to
the
grow
pruning you
back.
talked about, yeah.
Yeah, so, but my point is, if there is, I would like an arborist opinion on that. I don't care. I mean, it could be that the trees can spring new growth, and because it's been trimmed so much, I know it had problems with branches, because I know that Tony said he cut many of them down. So. I didn't mean Tony went out. So, anyway, I don't think.
Climbing trees now?
I don't think it's a good idea to argue here. I would like to postpone this, and then
One other
we'll
thing,
study it
please.
more.
This is not the first time this has happened. We've done it on Pleasant Street. I'm not sure there's other requests, but we did do it on Pleasant Street, where somebody wanted to put a circular driveway. It's a tough place to back out and pull into. So I did allow someone to take a tree down, and they replaced it with two more. The tree had just been planted a couple years before. Somebody had just purchased the price, so it's not setting a precedence.
I didn't know you could put a circular driveway in front of a house. Is that true? Is that zoning? Is that true?
There was, I did hear Counselor Swope say she wanted, did you want to
Yes.
use your request to put this on? Okay,
To
so
postpone
Counselor
this.
I have one
Swope-
question before we postpone it. If you can hold that, if you can hold that request.
Yes, I can hold that question until.
I just have a procedural question on how it went to the Board of Appeals before the tree issue was decided.
I can,
You know the answer to that?
the Board of Appeals had nothing to do with this, it was variances because of, we have, the driveway is going to go next to, it's gonna be close to the line of our neighbor, which they have a driveway. So they were in support of our coming closer to the line, which would be, it was a variance for the boundary.
Right.
That went before the Board of Appeals.
So they granted the variance for the boundary
But you can't get to it without the tree down.
with no regard to the tree.
Right.
Okay.
Counselor Swope? you s-
I just-
Okay, so Counselor Swope has
Yep,
used her.
I'm sorry.
We can't just keep putting it off. Counselor Swope has used her
sorry,
council
I'll
privilege to
postpone.
put this off. This will be on the agenda for the next meeting. It will be voted on then. Thank you.
There isn't,
Appoint, sorry. Appointments.
our next meeting's July 2nd.
No.
Appointments are gonna be
Nine.
made in two tranches
I would double
this
check.
evening. Reappointments made by Town Council President for the following committee for a term of 3 years, or take any other action relative thereto. We would take these all at once. Beautification Committee, Maxine Lieberman and Mary Rudzer. Board of Appeals, Darren Beard, Thomas Chadina, Jason Wright. Board of License, Sam Goncalves, Kurt Millar. Citizens Advisory Committee on Finance, Matt Gorkowitz, Brent Farrell. Constables, Pat DeFeo Jr., Kevin Janellis, Charles Sullivan. Conservation Commission, Tracy Machinsky. Memorials Committee, Rose Mazzucchelli, Mary Lou Osborne. And Planning Board, Christopher Boyce, Sarah Jane Furness, Alyssa Gamble, and Honor Merced. So those are reappointments to boards. Motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Munchin. Any discussion on the motions?
Any progress on the Citizens Advisory Committee to climate action?
Yeah, that's a separate motion.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Also, accept the appointment by Council President Lettieri to appoint Jordan Senerth on the Board of Appeals for a term of 3 years, or take any other action relative thereto. Motion by Vice President Belcher,
Second.
second by Councilor Munson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town Council accept the appointment made by Council President Lettieri to appoint Denise LeConte on the Board of License for a term of 3 years, or take any other action relative thereto. Motion by Council Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Costigan. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Congratulations. That the town council accept the nomination appointment made by Town Council President Lettieri to appoint Jared Siegel on the Conservation Committee for a term of 3 years, or take any other action relative thereto. Motion by Vice President Belcher.
Second.
By Councilor Munson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The second tranche will be made at our first meeting in September. There is also, and this was, and Councilor DeRoss is not here, but Councilor DeRoss had asked, with the council's backing, asked for a Citizens Advisory Commission on climate. So the town council accept the appointments made by Town Council President Lettieri for the Citizens Advisory Climate Commission, or take any other action thereto. So I have composed a committee of 7 individuals. The first would be Town Manager Marino or designee. Second would be Councilor DeRoss. Third would be Councilor Costigan. Fourth would be Norman Hyatt. Fifth would be Anna Leary. Sixth would be Celeste Ribeiro Hewitt. And seventh would be Kim Dimes. We received more appointments than, we received more requests than this, but I feel comfortable with this list, and I thank everybody that applied.
Appreciate it.
Any discussion on this? Well, there's a motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Swope. Any discussion on this? Councilor Munson?
Do they have a mission statement and a schedule?
That will be the committee to do. The committee will be formed, the committee will have their first meeting, they will pick a chairman, a chairperson, they will create a mission statement, and hopefully they will, I'm not expecting them to get back to us in a week, but I'm sure they will have something to report, and I'm sure Councilor DeRoss will take the lead on this, and again, I think it's a really good committee. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Public comment. Mr. Dow.
Thank you. As far as this tree on Pearl is at, I did go to the tree committee meeting, and it was determined that they wouldn't take the tree down. And then the tree warden took it upon himself to suggest that you take the tree down. So it has to come before this group, one way or another.
Correct.
I looked at the pictures, I was standing in front of the tree, I was at the tree committee meeting, and that tree is directly in the center of the house, as far as the plot frontage. So where he wants to put this driveway is on his front lawn. So it is, front lawn. So you can't put a driveway on the front lawn. I'm going through this with the Board of Appeals, and it was determined that these people don't want to put in circular driveways, etc. The Board of Appeals denied in certain cases that I was a participant with on Court Road. They said you can't put a driveway on a front lawn. So that issue has to be determined. Whether it's determined by the Board of Appeals or not, I'd like to see the minutes of the Board of Appeals meeting in order to make a determination on this very serious matter. As far as Mr. Aiello's meeting with the DCR, do we have a report of that meeting that you're going to share with us?
I think the councilor shared his, a brief description of that meeting.
I'd like a written report about the meeting with, I don't know.
Well, that's a councilor attending a meeting. I don't think he needs to do a written report on that meeting. He
But
shared
everybody-
his.
No one knows except Mr. Aiello, and his suggestion for helping the townspeople get out of town when there's a storm, and it happens all the time now. His first suggestion at the meeting with Max Desineri was to put a policeman up on Bennington Street to direct traffic. Well, the line from Winthrop was 45 minutes long. You turned around and we did it, and you wanted to get to your doctor or any place else. It was 45 minutes long. So Mr. Aiello's suggestion was to put a policeman up there. And I said at the time, well, maybe it's raining out, thunder, lightning, northeast storm, sleet, snow. Who's gonna take that job? Nobody. So that was his suggestion. And he suggested it again tonight with his meeting with the DCR, that nobody knows what he said, because he won't give us a written report about the wave action, hitting the wall, and this and that and the other thing. So my suggestion was, and Mr. Hill said at that time, that, Jack, you know how long it's gonna take? And I suggested, well, if you start today, you'll be ahead of the game. And I said at the meeting 2 weeks ago, Army Corps of Engineer has a list a mile long about replacing seawalls in this country, mile long. So if you don't start, you'll never get it. Now, your suggestion with DCR tonight was, we'll put a guy up on a raincoat up on Bennington Street, and that'll determine how the traffic is moving up there. It's ludicrous, it's ridiculous.
Thank you, Jack.
The
And then-
statement is ridiculous.
Thank you.
stuff.
And in regards,
I'd like to see that DCR report.
your 3 minutes is up right
everybody
now, so I'm
knows.
going to ask,
Listen,
I'm
people
gonna
talk for
ask,
10 minutes up here.
that was
10
not a
minutes.
public comment. Your 3 minutes is
Right,
up
and it
right
wasn't
now.
public
Thank you
comment
very
at the
much.
time, Tim. So what you're trying to do is stifle my ideas.
I am not. I'm giving
We
you
need a
3
new
minutes as I give
seawall.
everyone else. Thank
We
you
need a
very
new
much for your comments.
seawall
Please sit down.
from there onward. It's 2,500 feet.
Thank you very
I've
much.
already measured it.
Thank you.
So take
Councilor
that
Aiello,
out.
I'm gonna let you
Right.
respond
Thank
since you were talked to directly.
So, I am very sorry if we have a citizen who misinterpreted what transpired at the meeting.
Which meeting?
This is not a back and forth. This is a direct response to your,
Tree
With
meeting we had,
DCR,
DCR
the
meeting.
meeting with DCR. What I reported earlier, and Council Tassinari reported on my report to him, but I said it personally here, that DCR has in fact started the process of figuring out what the right kind of seawall is to solve the problem permanently. That's great news. It has started. The engineering on the wall will begin next spring. It will be a permitting cycle, and you gotta find the money. So that is good news. The problem is that, I said it earlier, unconstrained by dollars. In other words, if we had all the money coming from heaven, that new wall wouldn't be in place for 6 years, if everything else went well, okay? And obviously, there will be money struggles, because money doesn't always come from heaven. So, but let's count on 6 years. The question then is, do we sit here and do nothing and sit on our hands every time the parkway is closed? We have no control over the parkway being closed. That's a call made by public safety people, primarily by the state police, on closing the parkway, which means all the traffic has to go through the heights. The only other alternative, the way to mitigate it is some kind of override of the traffic signals up at the heights when the parkway is closed. You could double, triple the output of that intersection if you manage that intersection properly, okay? I'm a traffic engineer. I know what I'm talking about on this stuff. And you could do it electronically, that there's an automatic call from the state police to the Boston Traffic Control Center to override and have a long green light to clear out the green, about the green. So this nonsense of a policeman not wanting to stick out on the rain is just nonsense. It can all be done electronically. Of course, if there's police there, they can also be a backup to any other kinds of confusion that it might cause. But maybe there's better ideas out there, but the fact that we're gonna have a discussion between this town and the state police and the city of Boston, who all can figure out how to manage the exit at the heights better, is nothing but good news for this town. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, Bill Schmidt, precinct 5. Just to comment quickly on the school override.
I just want to say one thing.
There is no talking. You're out of order, you're out of order, you're out of order, John. Excuse me, you're asked to leave. I'm asking you to leave right now. I'm asking you to leave right now. Mr. Schmidt.
Everybody over here saw it.
Mr. Schmidt.
You're mouthing the words. Terrible, Joe.
Mr. Schmidt, did you have comments?
So regarding the
Baloney.
regarding the school override issue, I just want to make a comment that what we're talking about is not level, I hope what we're talking about with this proposal is not level funding. I hope it's getting about what the community needs, and it's not just because the overrides only happen every 15 years.
It's been
hopefully
15
more
years
often.
since we've had, I think,
Often-
more.
Often more often, then we're gonna have to think about what's really gonna cost, not just in 1 year, but the next 5, 10 years. Number two, just a point also, Strawberry Festival, not upcoming event, it was this past Saturday. It was, I don't know if it was a majority of the council was there, but there were several, and we all enjoyed our time there. And just want to make a comment, Councilor Munson had a very healthy amount of strawberry shortcake.
I think so did you.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just real quick. Brendan Cooney, Precinct 5, Pico Ave specifically. I just want to stress that nothing is pushed off until the fall. I learned from these meetings that I have a heck of a lot to learn, but one thing I've learned is that something new that comes up that will need funds pretty much every time. So we've been discussing this since January to seriously consider fixing the streets. And I just ask that it continues to be the priority. The wall in front of my house that has held the stormwater at bay all these years is crumbling. I have to fix it. I just can't fathom fixing that before anything else is even considered on the street. So I just ask that time is seriously of the essence, and it is no laughing matter. And thanks.
Thank you, and we appreciate your time here.
Yeah.
I know you've been really, any other public, anything on Zoom? Yes.
Diana Sands?
Couple of things that I wanted to speak about. The fire station before, but I couldn't get on. The Winthrop building has come up again. I think it was pretty clear that the town wasn't interested in that. And I know that you're pushing for it. I'd like to see it off the table at this point. The middle school, I know a lot of people were interested in that. But I did think it was a good plan to try to make some money for the town on that. I think that Hannah made a good point about bringing out the other options that were already taken off the table, because we don't have a good understanding of why other places were taken off the table. I had spoken with someone a while ago about looking at a fire station. I don't know why it would be appropriate. Next to the, in the parking lot, next to the Citizens Bank coming out to the Pauline Street, and would take one person's business, I think, at the gas station. And I'm not sure why that wouldn't be appropriate, but I don't know that anybody ever listened to that. So that was one suggestion, but I'd like to see the other ones that were ruled out as well, and the reasons why not necessarily flood. The other question that just came up is DCR money for the walls that won't happen for 6 years. Isn't DCR funded by the state? It doesn't happen from Winthrop, does it? The wall money?
Correct.
Yeah. So why is that a big deal? Why would it be 6 years?
I think, well, this isn't a back and forth, but I think any kind of municipal government takes time. Nothing happens overnight.
And the other thing I wanted to suggest, the traffic police officer and the long life, and you're an engineer for this and so forth. What is the long-term plan to correct the traffic? There should be something, going through East Boston, another road, perhaps another road through here. I mean, when the 10,000 units came up, and I know that's stalled now, in Revere, I never heard of an exit road, or that they even discussed with us what they were gonna do with all those thousands of cars coming out of that. Were there any overpasses that were discussed? Anything in the plans going forward through East Boston and through Revere? Just wanna put that out there, long term.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Diana Viens?
Thanks, Diane, Precinct 2. This is on the trade of 170 Grover. mentioned that he inspected the tree. It's certainly chopped down. And if you looked down Pleasant Street, if there was a removal for a tree on Pleasant Street to put in a circular driveway without a hearing or it having been posted, that's against the law. So I really hope that didn't happen. But all that is irrelevant because we do have a tree ordinance which was put in place for the public interest. And you can read it yourself. I sent it tonight. I'm probably out of time, but essentially you can't chop a tree down unless it's dead, diseased, injured, causes imminent danger, and it's necessary to enhance the public health or condition of nearby trees, and there's no alternative to cutting it down. And that's our law. So that's what we follow, and for good reason. And it's because we need to preserve a very precious and very at-risk tree canopy here in Winthrop, given our environmental situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Denise?
That's it.
Anyone here? All right, thank you. June 27th, Winthrop Public Library celebrates its 125th anniversary from 5 to 7. July 16th, with the planning board, we'll be meeting with RKG Associates once again, their second meeting with them. That will be at the Senior Center at 6 p.m. Winthrop Farmers Market States, again, began this past Sunday. It was excellent, very well attended. It was a beautiful day, so I encourage people to go down to Ingleside Park. It will be every other Sunday, basically, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. On July 11th, at 6 p.m. in the Harvey Hearing Room, Precinct Councilor for Precinct 2, John Munson, will be holding an informative precinct meeting here at the Harvey Room at 6 p.m. I'm sure there will be discussion on 3A amongst other topics. I encourage people to attend from this precinct and outside his precinct. I'm sure he would welcome them. And again, that's Councilor Munson, Precinct 2, July 11th at 6 p.m. at the Harvey Hearing Room. The Strawberry Festival was this past Saturday. It's already passed, but it was the 110th. And I think there was probably a majority of councilors there. It was enjoyable, not all at once and not sitting at a table, but it was very enjoyable. They do an incredible job. It's amazing how many people I saw there that lifelong Winthrop residents that said, this is my first Strawberry Festival. It's really a great event. The weather was fantastic, which made it that much better. They gave tours out every 15 minutes if people were interested in that. It was a great event, and we thank them for putting that on and continuing that tradition after 110 years. I know, Bill, you weren't at the first one, were you?
No, I'm not. Not that old.
All right, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Vice President Bell. Second by just about everyone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, the ayes have it, meeting adjourned. Thank you.